All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Live on 10 Horse Money Fishing YouTube channel. Great to have everybody in here on a cold Tuesday evening. First, I want to give a shout out to a couple of the companies that are sponsoring the stream tonight. We got Bass Braid on board. We talked to Matt last week and kind of went over his product. It's a high quality 8-strand braid at a reasonable price, and also Baitworks has been with us for quite a while. So it's great to have those folks on board supporting the stream. Let me pull Marshall in here. There you go.
I think I got it now.
Okay, looks good. Looks good. It's clearer than what it was for sure.
Good deal. It's grainy.
So, like I was telling Drew before he came on the show, my daughter texted me while I was at work, and apparently she's down in the workout room and she saw what we think is there's three options. It's either a small mouse, it's a shrew, or it's a mole. It's one of the three. And we had a shrew in a glue trap in the garage a couple days ago that they felt so bad about it because it was like whistling and carrying on and making all kinds of rackets. So they did a little bit of research online. You know, they came up and told me about it. I'm like, just leave it alone. It'll die eventually, or just throw it in the trash or whatever. They're like, no, we can't just let it suffer. And so anyway, they did some research online and they found out that if you put like some canola oil, some vegetable oil on one of those glue traps, that it can actually escape. So they took it out in the cold, in the grass, and they poured the oil on it, and apparently it got away. Well, I set that glue trap out the very next day, and then we got another one in it. So I don't know if it's the same one that came back or whatever, but besides that one, there's another one in my house, and that's a long way of telling you that if you hear me squeal like a little girl, there's probably a mouse in the house somewhere, because we couldn't find it. I got home and went down there and we were looking for it everywhere. You know, we had the cell phone lights out and we were looking all around and moving stuff. Never found it, but we did have a confirmed sighting of some little rodent running around our basement. So hopefully,
at least it's furry and not scaly, bud.
Exactly. It'll be fine. I'm okay. Like if I see stuff first, I'm usually good with it. You know, like a snake. You know, we've all seen snakes. What's your Marshall? How do you react to snakes? Are you somebody that wants to see them first, or
a snake? A snake ain't too bad. I'll tell you what I don't like seeing is a roach.
Oh,
because we do some plumbing, and man, when you open up a manhole and you see all those roaches down there, that ain't something that I like. I think I'd rather have a tarantula crawl up my arm.
Yeah,
I'm not roaches. You could get the eggs on you. You could transport them to your place, and that's no fun.
Yeah, you don't want that.
With you.
Yeah, I stayed at a like this really cheap hotel at Montauk State Park, which is a little trout fishing park in Missouri. I went down there on a solo trip. Probably, it was earlier this year. I hadn't been standing in a river in a long time, and I just felt like I needed to stand in a river for my soul, you know, just to get away. And so I made this little trip, and it was like a $54 motel room. And you know, first thing you do is you check everything behind the pictures. You want to go through all the sheets and the couch cushions and all that. And I did a pretty thorough check, but there was this little bug. You know, obviously I'm looking for bed bugs. There's this little bug by the sink, and I couldn't get like a total beat on what kind of bug it was, but it looked bed buggish. So, you know, first thing we do is we get on the internet and we pull up all these pictures, and a lot of times we end up freaking ourselves. Like I pulled up like top 5 bugs that look like a bed bug but are not a bed bug, and then I didn't see the exact bug that I'm sitting there looking at. And so basically, long story short, I slept, you know, in my clothes, and I slept on top of the comforter the whole night. And luckily it wasn't like cold, but I don't care for roaches or bed bugs or any of that kind of stuff.
No.
You're a bold man to pay $54 for a motel room and then decide to inspect it. If I'm paying $54 for a motel room, I'm going in, I'm covering my eyes, and I'm feeling for the bed. And once I find it, I'm going to lay down there in my hoodie and my jeans and fall asleep. I am not going to look at anything, because the more I look at it, the more unhappy I'm going to be with the experience.
Yeah, there's something happened in that room. I don't know what it was, because there were some stains on the couch. There were some stains on the sheet. There's some scuff marks on the carpet. And I mean, I slept, but I just didn't sleep that good.
Have you ever stayed at a Howard Johnson?
Oh my
I remember Howard Johnson's.
Have you ever stayed at a Howard Johnson?
So I got on the internet after we won in Florida, and I was like, we're going the same direction for a little while, and so I was like, we'll get a hotel, get a few hours under us, and so I get this hotel, right, and I'm looking around hotels at, I think it was Ocala, Florida, and I'm looking, I'm like, we just won 20 grand a piece, we don't need to be skimping here. So I was like, I'm gonna exceed that triple digit threshold. So I'm like, we're gonna get something nice. We're gonna get something that's like over $100. So I get a $140 hotel. It's the Howard Johnson, and I look at some of the photos. It looks really nice, $140. So there's no way it's not a nice hotel, right?
Yeah.
Well, we show up. There's plastic wrap on the lamp, and there's a roach pinned inside. It's not a big one, about that long, pinned inside the plastic wrap of the lamp. There's black scuff marks all over the linoleum floor. And then walk in the bathroom, and there are just like red splotches all over the edge of the shower. Like it's like a barrier. Probably, I don't know, a moderate amount of splotches. I would say this is not excessive splotchiness, but there were probably 20 to 25 splotches.
More than you wanted to see.
On a splotch. I mean, what's the?
I'd say the average splotch was probably like between the size of a mini M&M and a standard M&M. In that range. Nothing like quarter sized, but noticeable enough when you put enough of them in close proximity.
Can you wipe it off?
Very odd. I didn't make any attempts to wipe it off because I didn't want to find out.
Kind of like that, huh?
Yeah,
you should have got the $170 suite, man.
He should have got the other one was like what, so 240 or something, 280.
Yeah, every other hotel around was 200 something.
It would have been worth it though. It would have been worth
There's
it.
no way. I mean, at the end of the day,
life lesson, right? Just because it's over $100 doesn't mean it's a good hotel. You got to look at what the threshold in the area is. If 140 is the cheapest one in the area, it's probably not a good sign.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be real. You aren't convincing me to spend $200 on a hotel, ever. Not gonna do it.
You can convince that one experience convinced me. That's all I needed. Like I thought we were about to pull up in the Hilton or something, and we pull up in there, and I'm like, I don't know, I've never stayed in one of these. I said, but the outside don't look that bad. And then we walk in and we see that, and I'm like, dang, Drew. I'm like, we just got to stay one night. We could have got the expensive one.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's a gamble. You just never know. I mean, like the pictures are always going to look really good. That's like the picture on the sign at McDonald's. The Big Mac is like super firm, and all the special sauce is just perfect on there, and you get it. It's usually like all sideways, and the pickles are hanging off one side, and
there's 4 pounds of mustard on a sandwich that you didn't want any mustard on.
There was mustard in this hotel room for sure. I never found it, but it was somewhere.
Right. It's probably still there.
Dude.
I remember we talk about hotels. I remember Kentucky Lake, Gabe, and we were out in the middle of this field, and it had to be built in the 1960s, 1970s, because a 7-foot rod couldn't stand in the corner.
Yeah, it was when the average height of a male was like 5'6" or something. It was really low ceiling.
6'2", and I ducked walking in the door. And then you step in we had to keep all of our rods in the very back of this hotel or room, whatever it was, because there was a step down into to where the shower was at. But I remember we were sitting there getting ready that afternoon, and I looked over and I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, that was a mouse. Sure was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was some mice in that.
Did you wake up with one I
had one crawl across my chest. I was laying on my back, and it's weird, staying in a place for the first time, especially when it gets really dark, like when you shut the lights off and it's really quiet. There's no fan or no heater, nothing, and you're just laying there trying to, you're fishing a derby the next day too, so you got that going through your head, and you're just laying there trying to be quiet and just focus and go to sleep. And I finally got to sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I felt something, and this mouse ran across my chest. was like, can the sun? You're like, please, sun, hurry up, sunshine, come up, and so we
They got your crackers too that night, didn't they?
Yeah. They had a bag. This is not how we were going to start the live stream, but I love it. It's just random organic stuff. But we had a bag of peanut butter crackers, like just a brown paper sack of peanut butter crackers on the table. And there was 2 other guys staying with us. So they actually weren't my peanut butter crackers. They were the other guys that were staying there. So they're fishing out of one boat. We're fishing out of another. They get up in the morning and leave. They grab their snacks that are in that bag, throw it in the glove box in their boat. And actually it was a Triton, Drew. And they're out there fishing later that day. And they hear something, some sort of movement, and didn't think too much. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was just a little something in the background, and then they didn't think too much about it. And they heard it again, and finally they open up the glove box and they kind of get closer to the source of the noise, and it's that brown paper sack, and they pull it out, and there was a mouse inside of that paper sack. So they freaked out.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man, it is crazy hotel stories.
Dude, like I bet when people ask me, they're like, "Hey, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you while fishing or at a tournament?" It almost never is about the fishing or the tournament. It's almost always about some random hotel story. Like we had one my freshman year of college at Chickamauga. We were staying at the America's Best Value Inn, and anyways.
Don't even touch it. Don't even touch it.
I'm sorry.
Go sideways.
America's Best Value Inn. And we wake up at 2 a.m. to an open door. And little did we know the hotel we were at, they didn't clear the key cards at the end of a stay. They would just issue new key cards. And so there was a crackhead that walked into our room at 2 a.m. and laid down on the foot of my buddy's bed we were dazed and confused because we had all just been woken up by a dude opening the door and walking in and laying down on the bed. And that was if there's ever been an experience where I felt like I was in true potential danger, it was right then. Like when that happened, I mean, when you're half asleep and you see that, you don't even know if it's real or fake. You think there's some sort of sleep paralysis demon sneaking into the room and trying to take your feet off your body. It was
That's
super
insane.
Odd. Yeah, and he one of them is a concealed carry enthusiast and proceeded to make some sort of gesture toward the individual, and he proceeded to stand back up and walk out and shut the door. And then we looked outside and you just didn't see the guy. So I'm not even sure if he was real, but if he was, that was super scary.
I tell you what, the places that we stayed when we were fishing in college were sketchy to say the least.
100%.
Because we were rubbing nickels together trying to figure out where we're going to stay at and how many guys we can cram in one room and how many extension cords is it going to take to run into that room and not blow something up.
Yep. I relate for sure.
Because the biggest challenge was having that many extension cords running into a room and still getting the door to shut and lock.
Yeah, because that little strip under there, depending on how tight it is, and that's one of the great things about the cheap hotels too, is generally the cheaper the hotel, the more extension cords you can fit under the door. Because The weather strip doesn't work at all. It's all chewed up. And generally the door's got a good bit of space between it and the floor.
We had one that if it would have rained or snowed that night, everything would have been wet in the room. That's the extent of your weather stripping.
Nice.
Huh. Well, I forgot to put finding a safe hotel while on the road in the comments section, or in the description box. So we'll do that when we go back. So I mean, I know you guys have talked about this a little bit. I saw you on Bash University early today. I was just clicking through and I saw you guys on there. But first of all, congratulations on the Summit Cup win, the team series. That was awesome. I got to watch a lot of that, and it was you made a statement, man. It was you crushed them, which was really interesting. And I think one of the coolest things about it was the way you guys did it. It was a lot. It wasn't traditional, which I don't know. I don't even know what is traditional anymore. We say that word, but I guess it's still a word, but it wasn't traditional Florida fishing,
right,
especially around vegetation and stuff. but it was cool nonetheless. It was cool to see that go down. So how did you guys kind of break a little bit of the tournament down as far as how did you end up fishing with a drop shot? You know, that was interesting to me, just turning it on and you guys are catching them on a drop shot. How did you get to the point where you decided to slow down, just pick stuff apart with a drop shot?
Well, I don't think it was, I mean, I know Drew, you know, when we talked about it before the tournament, I remember him mentioning it. But he was kind of, you know, at first we were kind of messing around. He's like, man, while you're throwing whatever you're going to be doing, you know, chatterbait, topwater, flipping, swim jig, whatever. He said, I'm gonna just hook a drop shot around. He said, and I'm gonna just catch them doing that. He said, I'm just slinging it around everywhere we go. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, it could definitely work. But you know, when you're, you know, about to go there, you're kind of, like you said, you're thinking of traditional stuff. You're thinking maybe a flipping bite, a swim jig bite, you know, fun stuff. Or, you know, everything that catches a bass is fun. But when you think of fun, you think of, you know, big line, top water, stuff like that. So when we got there, that's how we started it off, but it's definitely not how we ended it.
Yeah.
And Drew, tell him the way you were going about it, because he started it early on. Even the first day he pulled it out, started to put it into work. So I'll let him tell you about it.
Okay.
So I mean, you know, and I'll open the floor up here for any sort of quarrels with what I'm about to say. Largemouth bass in warm water or in a warm region of the country, have they ever not liked a worm? Ever? Is there ever been a bait that has been as effective and as consistent at catching a largemouth bass as a soft plastic worm? I dare anyone to argue the point that there's ever been a bait as consistent at catching a bass as a worm. And then, you know, so A, worm is always a good option, especially when you're fishing around off-colored water. Because in off-colored water, you know, it's the situation where a worm doesn't look like anything to eat. We might tell ourselves, oh, it looks like a bluegill. Oh, it looks like a crawfish. When you have a 7-inch long, just very thin strip of plastic on a hook, a bass that eats bluegill and crawfish for a living doesn't look at that and go, ah, that's a bluegill. It has no idea what it is. So when you use that opportunity off-colored water, you're trying to create a new experience, essentially, with a bait that, you know, is something unlike anything they've ever seen before. And off-colored water really lends to that because it does allow them to scrutinize the bait in a super major way, and it kind of hides some of the specific features about the bait and makes it where they just see movement, they detect that there's something alive in the water around them, and they can tell that there's something there. And, you know, when you're in off-colored water, especially in a situation where you've got, you know, Florida often has a lot of nutrient matter on the bottom, whether that be silt or just like stubble grass, you know, any sort of muck on the bottom. And, you know, a lot of times a bait that lands on the bottom where your bait actually gets in the bottom is going to get lost in that. And if you watch them on your screen and watch them interact with your bait, you hop that bait up and they'll follow it up and they'll get to the bottom and they'll totally lose it. You'll start dragging it. And if you don't lift it up again, they just keep kind of going the direction that the bait's moving, but they totally lose pace of it. Your bait gets way out in front of them because they just don't know where it's at. And then you hop it up and they get right back on it again. And so a drop shot's a logical choice in that scenario because it keeps it above the silt, above the stubble grass, keeps it up in their line of sight really well and makes it where they can really lock in on it and not lose track of it, which makes you very efficient because you don't waste casts, you don't waste opportunities pulling one to the boat that kind of sees your bait, kind of doesn't, and it follows it from a distance, knowing where it's going, but it doesn't know where your bait's actually at. And then you just pull them all the way to the boat and your opportunity to catch that fish is gone. So drop shot's very logical choice from that angle. And, you know, the final thing is that a drop shot is very effective at making precise casts. When you can cast it very quickly, very snappily, and due to the fact it's on a spinning rod, you're not going to have any worries of backlash and making yourself more efficient in that manner. So I can just whip that bait out there right on a dime wherever I want it all the time. And it is an extremely high percentage landing bait. I mean, of all the baits that have ever existed in bass fishing, drop shot or just a finesse worm that's rigged on a hook with no weight in front of it, even though there's, you know, weight below it, a hook with no weight in front of it, with a worm, a single hook on a spinning rod, it's top 5 ways to land a bass. You know, for sure, if your life depends on it, that is one of the best baits ever for landing a bass. And in a situation where every single bite counts because every fish counts, it's a very logical conclusion. So, although, you look at it in specific instance of this is a Florida tournament against a bunch of very, proficient and knowledgeable Florida anglers, in a in a professional landscape, in a set of fisheries with a lot of very heavy cover. You look at that, in its own little scenario, and you go, well, maybe, dirty water, maybe that doesn't lend to an approach like that. But if you take it out of that specific little box you put it into and just look at it in the scenario of, largemouth, off-colored water, situation where you got to land everything that you can get a bite from and get as many bites as possible because that's the name of the game. The logic leads you to a drop shot really well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now that you say it like that, especially that silt on the bottom, that getting, if you're just flipping something, just a traditional Texas rig, it's going to get lost in that silt. And so I guess the thing is you got to figure out, obviously, fish location, get an area that's got a lot of bites because it's an every fish counts format. And then secondly, figure out if they're willing to chase something versus if you've got to, kind of soak something. That's probably the couple of the things you got to find out is, the sooner the better on that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Big transition in our week was about 15 minutes into the knockout round at the Stick Marsh. That's kind of when our week went from, one deal to another for sure.
Yeah. It's like exactly what you just said. You got to figure out if they're chasing or if they're not wanting to chase, if they're being lazy. And, we had to figure out that. And then also when you're throwing in a every fish format or every fish counts format, you're really just thinking, how can I get bites? Like you don't want to pass, you can't pass up, you can't afford to pass up a 1 pounder. So you really, if you pick up the big stick, if you pick up, any big bait, any big profile, you pretty much know that you're going to pass up at least a couple bites, scoreable bites. So we didn't want to do that. But, the first day it was warm and we did a lot of the power fishing and it worked out for us. It did most of the heavy lifting, until late in the day. And Drew did catch a few key fish on the drop shot that day. But it wasn't to the point that like we thought we both needed to do it yet. And like he said, we got to the Stick Marsh, we were hit with a cold front and also we were hit with a lake that didn't have a lot to offer. It's pretty much just an open bowl with a couple dikes on it that had hard cover, which was bushes. And so we knew where the fish were going to be. Like you said, you got to put yourself in an area that you're going to be able to get bites. And once we knew we were around fish, he actually he caught one red-handed following the chatterbait and kind of knew, hey, if he's going to follow it like that and not eat it, then we're just going to dome him with a drop shot. So we kind of went on doing that day, and we kind of won, pretty big that day. I mean, we had a big lead most of the day, and by the end of the day, we were double drop shot and just both of us throwing it around. And then so going in that last day, I mean, we were just gliding into it like we knew what we were going to do,
Yeah, that's nice, man. Going into having total confidence in certain bait, like narrowed it down to just, I know that I'm going to get some bites if I just keep this bait in my hand.
Right.
That's like one of the biggest battles in fishing is just figuring out the most efficient tool for the job on that given day. And if you go into that day knowing that that's the deal, I mean, it may be like you might have to change a different size worm or maybe a different color, or maybe a different weight,
make an adjustment.
But you pretty much got it dialed in at that point, and it's just a matter of making a few like small tweaks and adjustments.
For sure.
Right.
And just by sheer power of statistics, there's always going to be one best option on every fishery at a certain time for what you're trying to accomplish. Whether that be you're trying to accomplish catching your PB or catching the biggest 5 fish limit you've ever caught on that lake or catching as many keepers as possible. Whatever that goal may be, there's always going to be one tool that's best suited for that job at that time. And if you don't think that's the case, you probably haven't played around enough to find it, because generally there's always going to be one best tool. And generally speaking, it's going to be pretty obvious which tool is best for the job when you find it. And so in this scenario, just so happened to use the context cues we were given to land on a bait that would be pretty darn effective right out of the gate. And we landed on it fast, and then as the week went on, made some small modifications with the bait, with my leader line size, with weight size, and just to try and maximize our effectiveness or maximize our efficiency. But we landed on that pretty fast, just because if we had just taken it as that cast he made with that chatterbait, and I looked at it and gone, oh, there was one following it, and we had just taken it as that's just bass fishing, sometimes they don't eat it, we would have caught way fewer scorables than we did in the same area. We made a good area decision, we made a good cover decision, and he made a good cast decision. He made a cast at a very high percentage type of area for a bass to be living, but that bass didn't choose to eat it. And if you just roll over and accept it as, oh, this is just bass fishing, and there's no, I'm just going to not catch some of them, instead of taking the time to make an adjustment and go, okay, that fish, his fish on that cast was set up on a clump of bushes. It was on a very steep stretch, off-colored water, and it followed his chatterbait out. And I noticed whenever it left it, it didn't continue to swim past it and just keep going. It turned around. And anytime a bass follows a bait out from a certain direction or angle and it turns around after following it, it came from somewhere. It didn't just come from, oh, that's just where that bass happened to be. I saw it turn around. And as soon as they do that, as soon as they make a hard turnaround and follow a similar trail back to where they came from, they're wanting to live where they came from. And when I saw that, I knew, he made that cast past that clump of bushes. Okay, these are cover-oriented fish in dirty water. Precise cast to a single target with a bait that I can keep there and impart action without having to move the bait over distance. And it was just a very logical conclusion that we kind of drew, and both of us kind of agreed as soon as we saw that would be a good decision to make. And as soon as we landed on that, I mean, through a series of just logical assumptions, not really assumptions, just drawn from experience in a scenario like that, with watching an interaction like that. I saw that happen, and from experiences that we both had, we knew what those cues meant, and we were able to make a really accurate decision very fast. And if you listen to those cues in the environment, man, there's so many things that you can, do to improve your game in terms of your efficiency on the water, by picking up on those cues, adjusting to them very fast, and being willing to make a quick adjustment when necessary, because ultimately there's going to be a best option. And generally speaking, the fish are going to tell you what that option is, because either it's not going to be it or it's going to be it, but you're going to know it when you do it.
How much of your success do you think had to do with the area versus the bait? And what I'm getting at is, do you think that you guys could have went through the same areas that the Lane brothers were going through and some of the other competitors and caught similar numbers of fish? Do you think that they were passing up a lot of fish because they were, just based off the technique they were doing, or was it just limited to that those couple stretches that you guys fished in the tournament? I mean, there's no way really knowing because you weren't in there, but
yeah, right. So, when they come to the lake, the same way they're doing the same thing we're doing. They're looking at that map and they know what they're good at and they know what they're gonna do. And say they're wanting to punch, they're gonna go to the best area for that tactic. They're gonna go with the area that has the best cover, the best mats, maybe the most hollow mats, whatever it is, whatever key that they're looking for, that's what they're gonna go fish. And so, maybe the area they were in was either going to be a good area to punch or it wouldn't be fishable. Maybe the whole place is choked out with grass. So you might not be able to do what we were wanting to do there. But when we looked at that map, the first place we went was the most obvious place on the lake every day. That's what we did. We pick out the most obvious deep water access area that looked like it would have clean, hard bottom. And it was just because that's what fit our pattern. And so I think it's just relative to what style you're fishing and maybe what bait you're throwing. And yeah, I'm sure everybody went over fish, because if you're not throwing the most finesse tactic that you think is going to get you bites, yeah, you're probably going to pass up a few. But I think we did find the most effective area for what we were doing on that lake each day, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was just a hypothetical, but yeah, I like how you broke that down, because you do, when you got confidence and you're wanting to expand or just look for the right area for your technique, you do have to go into the area that offers the best opportunity for whatever technique you are fishing. For sure. That makes a lot of sense. Do you think that you would have been able to catch, so here's a question. Drop shot versus like a Neko rig. Is that strictly because of the silt you were talking about? You know, keeping your bait clean up off the bottom, or, you know, a Neko rig, it's kind of up in the air too. I mean, did you try anything else besides the drop shot?
Drop shot is for two reasons in this scenario. One is precision. You can cast a drop shot with a little bit more precision and a little bit more forgiveness than a Neko rig. You know, a Neko rig, to have it work optimally, you have to have that hook exposed. Rigging it weedless, you're going to lose a lot of fish. There's no way around it with a Neko. You've got a lot of worm in the way, and you're not going to clear that worm most of the time, which means a weedless Neko is only something I ever pick up when it's the only bait they'll bite, and I have to get it through a lot of cover. So in this scenario, we're fishing grass or fishing wood and, you know, like bushes, and I'm not going to want to throw something with an exposed hook. And being that a weedless Neko lands a lot fewer of its fish, we got to kind of factor that as fewer bites. Even though it's not fewer bites, if it lands fewer fish, you got to factor that as being a lower bite percentage, essentially, because you're going to land fewer of them than you would with a drop shot. And with a drop shot, it's a precision advantage. I can cast it way more accurately than a Neko for the most part. It's, you know, I had it rigged Texposed, so it's weedless. So I can pitch it up in a bush, pitch it in a grass clump, pull it through it, and have no issues. And another thing with it is, you know, due to that weight being the anchor point for the bait, with the drop shot, if I hang my line tight and I do a little bit of this, that all that's going to move is going to be the bait. It's not going to be the bait, you know, or I say all that's going to move is going to be the bait. The bait moves where it sits in the water column, but it doesn't move over distance in the way that a Neko does when you start hopping it and shaking it. And, you know, the silt's a factor, but when you hang a Neko up, like when you're trying to keep it above the bottom, when you start shaking it, you're going to swing it a long way in a very short amount of time, because that bait either is going to go to the bottom or it's going to go towards you, depending on how your line tension is. And with that scenario around bushes, around grass clumps, and dirty water, I wanted to be able to leave that bait in the same place just for findability reasons and for effectiveness reasons of not pulling a fish away from something without it getting a good look at my bait. I wanted to give it the opportunity to have the time to get up on it and not ruin opportunities by not hanging up on stuff and landing everything I could possibly land, which is why I landed on a drop shot in this scenario more than I did in Neko.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it was, I guess I didn't realize you guys were having to fish that slow, like really, you know, soaking the bait. And that makes total sense. You want to keep that bait right in their face, almost like a fish on a bed. You're just sitting there kind of making it mad.
Especially if you put it around a piece of cover, like when we knew they were on the base of those bushes at Stick Marsh, you know where you're going to get your bite from. It's probably not going to be 5 foot out in front of the bush. It's probably going to be right on the base. So when we pitch it in there, you know, you want to keep it in the strike zone. That was kind of when it was, that second day was when it was obvious that we needed it hanging in front of their face.
How do you guys figure out who's going to be in the front of the boat? Is that something you talk about, or is it just kind of happen?
For sure. Yeah. We, me and Drew, we've been buddies for a while. So, I mean, we can talk about anything. It ain't nothing awkward, So we just like, hey, whatever we're doing relative to whatever style we're fishing, that's who will run the front. Like, at Headwaters, I run it a good bit that day. And probably for the majority of the day, Drew fished behind me, and I was up on the trolling motor. But then the next 2 days, Drew had the front for the majority of the day, and that's just because the first day we were doing a lot of power fishing and covering water, and the second 2 days we were utilizing our electronics and power finesse fishing, and that's what he's good at. And the first day I was doing what I'm good at, and we just switched it up. It was we wasn't worried about who was catching what as long as we were catching them. So we just switched off and kind of fed off of each other and made it work that way.
Yeah.
When you're in a team tournament scenario, whether that be every fish counts or 5 fish, the goal is what is our maximum threshold for what weight we can catch today, and what's going to be our best bet of acquiring the maximum amount of weight. And whatever that ends up being based on who's using the net. who's on the front deck, who's fishing behind them, who's running the trolling motor, who's primarily focusing on the electronics and who's not. And, all those decisions, really kind of compile your answer for a certain situation. It's not that anybody, Marshall has done it in the past for sure, and definitely has the experience he's beat me using your electronics in a proficient manner, using a spinning rod in a proficient manner. He's beat me multiple times doing that. He's very capable at it. And beating him doing that power fishing thing is something that, is a very large challenge for me. It's something he has so much, history with in fishing shallow grass in the manner that we were doing. He consistently beats me at it. And so, it's a decision where it's not that anybody's inferior at a certain technique or approach. It's that it's not just enough in a team tournament scenario to have a person that's good or great at something doing it. You want to have the person in the boat that's the best option for that scenario doing the primary approach and somebody else backing them up and making sure they fill in the gaps. It's not about somebody being good or bad at something. It is about just choosing, this is the weight that I want to achieve. This is the weight we're potentially capable of. What's our best bet of achieving that today? And that looks different from day to day. And that's the approach we took in this tournament.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's good. I mean, that's part of being a good teammate, and being part of a good team is a good communication, not having to like step on eggshells because you're going to hurt your buddy's feelings if you say the wrong thing or you make the wrong suggestion, or you don't want an ego in the boat, because it, like you said, it doesn't matter who catches the fish. You guys both have the same goal, and how it's obtained really doesn't matter, because it's going to pay the same, and you're going to get to hold the big trophy up regardless of who caught what and who did what. I mean, I had no problem. I don't care if I net 40 fish for, my teammate. They're getting in the boat and it's all the same. So that's good. But some people can have an issue with that. That's just kind of a immaturity ego thing, in my opinion. Bass Guy 1960 says, what is your primary drop shot setup?
Go ahead, Drew.
So for me, in this scenario, I was using a 7-foot medium, 7.3 medium actually. And I was throwing it on 22-pound braid to 14-pound fluorocarbon. Pretty heavy line scenario for a drop shot. Fishing around heavy cover and fishing with a little bit heavier weight than the depth called for. Required a little bit bigger diameter line to kind of fight that weight a little bit. And it also allowed me to use a stouter gauge hook and set the hook a little bit harder and horse those fish with a little bit more aggression. And that was something that was really important in this scenario. I was using a 1/0 medium wire hook, and I was using a 1/4 ounce drop shot weight. Both, a little bit beefier, a little bit more upsize for the scenario. But that's what I was rocking with. 7-inch Nico Rama and Plum and Red Bug in the scenario. But my go-to drop shot setup is gonna, I'm gonna start with generally medium is where I'm gonna follow. That 7.3, 7.6 medium range is generally where I'm gonna end up with my drop shot rod. I'm gonna use that a little bit. I tend a little bit heavier on the braid, 18 to 22. But I'm going to start at 10-pound leader. I'm going to start with generally like a 1/0 light wire. And I'm going to start at 3/16 ounce on the drop shot weight. And my go-to length for a drop shot leader is going to be about 14 inches. That's where I'm going to start, and I'll work up or down from there based on the scenario.
Are you Texas rigging that in this scenario, or are you nose hooking it?
I'm a Texas rig guy 90% of the time on a drop shot, regardless of what scenario I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah. He was throwing a little bit heavier rod. I was throwing mine on a 7.1 medium light, and I think what it is we have a little bit different hook set. Drew, he keeps good tension, pulls and winds real fast and loads that rod, and I'm a little bit worse about wanting to wind down and hit the fish a little harder. So I got my drag adjusted. But I had it on a medium light, so I wasn't worried about losing them. I didn't lose, but like maybe one fish on the drop shot. But I used a little bit of lighter line. I had 10-pound braid to a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader with the FG knot, and I was throwing a 1/4 ounce weight with about my leader was a little bit longer than his. It was probably like a 16, 18-inch leader, and we were throwing the same hook. So the medium wire. What was it? A 1/0? I stole it out of his box. That's the why I asked him that. He had a pack of them. I took them out, and we didn't lose nothing. So it was the right hook.
They're working. I mean,
yeah,
take one.
A 1/0 with the 16, 18-inch leader, 1/4 ounce weight, and I was throwing a robo. I alternated between a 6-inch straight tail and then the fat straight tail. And that's pretty much my go-to. The robo worm is hard to beat it. So.
Yeah, that's you guys are fishing with two of the right worms for sure.
Well, I like the fact that you got Marshall down here that it's power fishing 101, right? You're going to use a little bit lighter rod so you can slackline them a little bit more.
Crack them, yeah.
Yeah.
Drew, you're obviously more dialed with your lighter tackle, your spinning rod. You're more comfortable with a spinning rod in your hand than you are a bait caster in this scenario. So,
I mean, anytime you got the 1 pound minimum, point blank, if you're choosing to take an aggressive approach, you're turning away bites. I'm all with the drop shot.
I don't disagree with that at all,
dude. Yeah, that was my main reason for taking this approach in this tournament. And really, it's my primary approach in every fish counts format tournaments, just because you're so efficient at maximizing your bite percentage. Because oftentimes with the drop shot, if they're biting it, you're not going to turn away a 5-pounder, and you're also not going to turn away a 1.5-pounder. Right. And there's some approaches for sure where you can turn away in your pursuit of catching big ones, that you would have caught on another technique. You're turning away smaller bites, smaller keeper bites as well. So that was my approach to this one for sure. And it's my wheelhouse too when I get the opportunity to do it.
You got Florida setup. You're not typically throwing 14-pound fluorocarbon to a 22-pound braid. It's probably a lot lighter.
Yeah, generally speaking, you're going to be a lot lighter.
You'd rather
be more like what Marshall was throwing
and be able to run through 1.5-pounders all day long than catch that 5, 6, 7-pounder that could potentially break you off, or that could be a longer fight. You get in a roll, you can catch quite a few 1-pounders in a hurry.
Absolutely. Even sometime, we get like especially the day at Stick Marsh, our average was a good average, man. Like we started catching a bunch of fish like mid 2 to 3 in that range. And then I had like a 5, and Drew had, I think, 2 or 3 4-somethings throughout the tournament. And, when you're catching fish like that, you're able to pretty much hoss them in. I mean, we had been snook fishing, and I don't know if y'all been snook fishing, but those fish are like on crack. Like if you hook them, there's about a 10% chance you get him in. No matter how big, if he's over like 25 inches. So,
they take off, don't they? They just take off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once we were catching, when I caught that 5-pounder, we were kind of just laughing. Like that fish is weak. Like he couldn't pull. I just hossed him in. Yeah. And so when you're able to do that, that makes you efficient, because we didn't retie a bunch. Like if I'm going to be honest, I think I might have retied twice in 2 days, maybe 3 times. And it was just because of the cover I was fishing around, not really because of the fish, because we were rotating, like Drew said, between 12 and 14-pound fluorocarbon. So definitely upsized a little bit.
Yeah, I did a little deep sea fishing, and those ocean fish are like, they're totally different than freshwater fish. We caught a lot of king mackerel out in the Gulf. Yeah, they will light you up. I remember one time we went out to the oil rigs, and we used to go down there and stay at Dolphin Island. We'd go out to the oil rigs at night. We'd wait till like 10, 11 o'clock, and we'd go out there and tie up. And man, it's crazy. It's a whole nother world out there at night. There's just all kinds of craziness going on. But we take we'd buy those cigar minnows and just get a big circle hook and just fish them like a jerk bait. Just throw them out there and just twitch, and let them fall. You catch those big king mackerel. I had
Drew's
a musky rod. I do what?
Said Drew's eyes are lighting up.
Oh, dude, it is fun. I had a musky rod, a pretty stout musky rod with an old Abu Garcia. I think it was like a 6500C round reel with like 50-pound mono on it. I had taken pliers and tightened the drag. Really? And
king mackerel was still and it was all you could do to stay in the boat. I mean, those fish will pull you out of the freaking boat. It's amazing.
Well, still got a burn mark on my thumb for making a poor decision related to drag that week. Oh man, it still haunts me. It was the only bad moment from the entire week. We were wade fishing, getting waist deep with the sharks. Old Shark Tails on the dock had tried his scare tactics on us about an hour prior, and there was this fella out there throwing a cast net that was like, man, there were 12-foot bull sharks all around this dock just last night. I wouldn't be walking that water if I were you. I was like, sir, if you thought I wasn't desperate for a bite, you think I'd be out here? And so we keep walking down this stretch, and I'm firing a jerk bait, 1/0 treble.
How deep water are you in right now?
We are in 3 feet probably.
Okay.
And
deep enough.
And so I'm firing a jerk bait around 1/0 treble hooks, 25-pound fluorocarbon, 7.7 heavy fast Phoenix, and I'm firing around lock drag. I throw it about, I don't know, 90, 100 feet, pretty long cast. Slash it, slash it, slash it, slash it, slash, slash, slash. And I slash it one time, and it's like, just like a traditional bass jerkbait bite where you slash it and your rod just kind of rebounds back. It just boing and points right back at the fish, because right as you do that, they feel that tension and pull right back. And so I went slash, and it just, at that point, I had no rod anymore. I might as well just been holding a reel pointed straight at the fish, and it goes, it just starts peeling drag on my lockdown reel. And I stomped my thumb on it, and it burnt a blister into my thumb that I've had for 2 and change weeks now, because it continued to strip the 25-pound fluorocarbon off my reel, and then ran up in the mangroves and exploded my line. Like, it wasn't like my line went, tunk. It was like, and then went,
it was wild to watch. We literally standing there.
Dang. Do you know what it was? Did you get a chance to see it or anything?
It was a snook.
It was a snook. Okay.
Jumped. It was a big snook. And it was probably high 30s, 40-incher. And biggest one I've ever hooked by far. And all of this happened in about 7 seconds, probably 7-8 seconds.
And you're just standing there going, what just happened?
Yeah, pretty much. And all that happened, and I was like, wow, there's my opportunity to do something cool this week. And now it's gone. And then we ended up winning the tournament, so it ended up all right.
Well, all of those fish are fighting for their life because there's 30 other species within 50 feet of them that will eat them.
Yeah.
The only thing a bass in Florida has to be faster than is an alligator.
And that's a big challenge for them.
Huh. Isn't a bull shark responsible for the majority of the shark bites, or a high percentage?
I think
it's not something
bull sharks are responsible for the most human casualties, I think.
Yeah.
And I think the white tip or black tip, one of the two, is responsible for the most human bites.
Okay.
But bull shark
is
responsible
for
the most human
Dude
casualties.
has his chest deep in the mangroves. I'm like, I don't know about this, dude. I don't know.
You guys are wanting it, man. You got to want it, man. You got to want it.
And then the water?
You can't see your feet at that point.
Ooh, that's even scary.
Yeah, some places you couldn't see, some places you could. We had one mangroves where you could, and I look over to my right, and I'm like, well, wouldn't you know? Look over there. And he looks over there, and it's not a big one. It's like a 5-foot-long bonnet head shark just cruising down the mangroves between us and the bank. And as soon as he saw that, he was like, you know what? They're not biting right here. I think we should make an adjustment. And I was like, you know what? That's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And we walked right on out.
Well, we were at the beach this summer just playing with the kids in the surf, and I was talking to a old boy from Alabama, and I just our kids were kind of playing with each other out in the surf, and I just happened to look over, and I caught something that was 2.5, 3 foot long that swam between me and him. Made me step back and look. I looked at him. He looked at me. He goes, "Is that what I think it was?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "All right." It's like, you don't say much because there's too many kids around, but there was a 3-foot shark that swam between me and him in ankle deep water. So that's real close for comfort.
Oh yeah, I was
feel eerie.
Yeah, I was in Mobile I don't know exactly what bay it was when we were down there on Dolphin Island, but I was wade fishing like you're talking about, Drew, and I was out in about waist deep of water, casting like just a jerk bait, and this is calm too. This is like the ocean's on one side, and then this is just a little bay, so it's really peaceful back there. And I'm just, hey, I'm fishing, I'm on vacation, life is good, and this is exactly where I want to be at right now. And then all of a sudden, here's the water level, and I see this fin come up about 30 feet from me, and I see another fin come up, and I start backing. And you can't just run out of waist deep water. There's a lot of pressure around you, so you kind of gotta do this. And it was a dolphin, but I didn't know it was a dolphin. I thought it was like a great white shark or something. But after that was it. I couldn't get back in the water for the next 4 or 5 days.
We did see our fair share of dolphins. Marshall was like standing in the water, probably not but 8 yards from 2 of them at one point. It was super cool.
Well, my thing though is where you guys are at in waist to chest deep water, you don't have a great perspective of what's out there. You don't have that looking into the water where you're 6 foot above it. You're 2 foot above it, 3 foot above it. You can't get that cut that you need to see in there.
And then you look down and you go, oh, there's a stingray swimming across my foot. That's great.
Well, yeah, that's not good either.
So did you guys just kind of shuffle around down there? Or was it?
We shuffled
we shuffled.
7.2 miles. 7.2.
Okay.
In the water, dude. It was like this dude, like he was like, okay, you want to go like wade around and try to catch some snook? I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. And we get out there and we wade around and we catch some fish, and we probably waded like, I don't know, 2 miles. And he's like, all right, well, when we get out of here, I already got us another spot to go wade. So we go there and we wade it. And then after that, he's like, well, I got us another spot. After that, we go wade another one. Then by the end of the day, dude, we've waited from almost daylight, like 6 a.m. to dark. And, it was fun, but, dude, we put our work in.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, we caught like 40 fish. It was a blast.
Really?
Awesome.
If he landed that 40-inch snook, it's a icing on the cake.
Yeah. I lost a big snook.
It was like a 40-incher.
I lost a good redfish, which for that part of Florida was a super cool treat. If I had landed him, it was probably mid-20s inch of redfish. And then I had another snook that was mid-high 20s that was like textbook. It was almost as if we were in a flats boat and he was on the push pole.
It was crazy.
Like we're walking and he looks to his right and he goes, hey man, don't move. There's one swimming down the bank. I'm like, what direction is it going? He's like, it's going towards you. So I throw my jerkbait out there and it's at the surface. And I can't see this fish yet, but he can see it at the angle he's at because, we're looking, evidently I had some glare that made it where I couldn't see what he was looking at. So I was like, tell me when to go. And he's like, go now. I snap it twice, and I just see this flash all over it. Pull into it, comes up, jumps again, and jumps off. And then I realize if I get one of these up to my hip, I don't know how I'm even going to land it by hand. Because last time I'd done that wade fishing, I had those really gaudy plastic lip grippers, which when you're, wade fishing is really convenient for unhooking fish. And that one didn't end up getting landed.
What'd you say you had 1/0s on there and they're swimming right about waist high?
They're huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like
ginormous trebles.
These hooks are probably legit. Like, I don't know if you can, they're like an inch and a half.
He makes a surge between your legs. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, you probably need to be wearing a cup or something.
There were so many times we were fishing opposite directions of pilings or mangroves to one another. And I was like, if you hook one, I'm screwed. Because I'd look down, his bait would be, I'd look over and see his jerkbait in the water next to me. I'd be like, man, if one meets that right now, I'm in trouble.
He got hooked one time too. He caught a Jack Prevail.
That was about
and he was
bad.
holding it, and it somehow you know how they do. They start flopping, and it fell off one side of the hook, but the other side was still attached, and it's like dangling from his hand. He's like, dude, get it. And I grabbed the fish, just like bear hug him, and because it was about to just drive that 1/0 hook deep. And we got it before it got in, but it still gripped him.
Yeah, so he was hugging 2 3-pound jacks, one in each arm.
Yeah, I had
jerk baits in their face.
So you got a backpack on your back with baits in it, or you just like solo one rod, one bait?
We both had a single rod, and then we had a dry bag that had my second phone of the week in it.
Yeah. Second.
Sounds like a successful trip.
Yeah, I wrapped the other one in plastic wrap and put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in my pocket and trusted it wasn't going to fry. It did.
A Ziploc.
I want to go fly
Ziploc
for those snook. I think that'd be pretty cool. Like get in those real shallow flats and
dude, it's super cool.
Things. I need to do that.
Have you guys either been out on a flats boat and done it that way? For like reds?
We got to go out on a boat for about 5 hours the first day.
Okay.
Yeah. We've seen some huge fish when we were in the boat. And I don't know why they wouldn't bite. They were like up under the mangroves and you could make a perfect cast and they didn't want nothing to do with it.
He caught a 10-pound tarpon though.
Yeah, I did catch a tarpon.
A 10-pound tarpon?
Baby tarpon?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that's a baby, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a catchable tarpon. A landable.
Yeah.
Did it get up?
It jumped into the trees.
It literally did. It jumped like 3 foot up into the bushes and just hang from the tree. And we just went and got it.
Oh, that's crazy.
It was crazy. I caught it on a 6-inch line through Kitech.
Nice.
Huh.
It was sick.
Yeah. Just bass fishing, basically.
Yeah.
Dude, it was.
I hooked one when we were in Cancun. My mom took me down there for my birthday, and we went out. It was the craziest boat. It was like this Mexican dude that had a little guide service down there, and it was like this little. It was like a bathtub that we were fishing out of. It was insane. I never seen anything like it. But anyway, we go through all these mangroves and stuff, and we're out in this little bay, and I caught about a 40-pound. He called it a baby tarpon, but it sucker just it ended up getting off. We were just throwing little jig heads because they don't really have. He didn't have any tackle. He had like jig heads. I don't know, like a 1-ounce jig head. Actually, they were lighter than that. They were like almost something you would throw a jig head minnow on, but with a bigger hook and just little curly tails. And that's what we were fishing. We were catching. We caught several fish, but I just remember that tarpon. Like when I hooked into that, most of the stuff we were catching was like 2 pounds or less. But when I hooked into that, I'm like, that's not what we've been catching. That's like a completely different caliber of fish. And he comes out of the water and I'm just like, whoa. And it ended up getting off. It was cool to see one.
Isn't the tarpons the one you dangle like a minnow on the dock floor and they come up and
yeah.
Yeah, they got big old
big ones. Yeah.
We gotta start talking about bass fishing because you guys are getting into my guilty pleasure, and I'm going red fishing next week. So like right now, mentally, I am like just like junkied up about saltwater fishing.
Yeah, I know, man. It's addictive, man. I'm glad I don't live closer to the ocean because
that's a bucket list.
I
for
agree.
Me.
I agree.
Yeah, I've the closest thing to saltwater fishing I've got is fishing off the pier, and that was, it was fun, but.
With you and 200 are your closest.
So aggressive down there. It doesn't matter what you throw out there. You don't need 75 colors of jerk baits. You need 3, and make sure you got really good hooks and don't lose them, and don't put your finger on the spool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask a serious bass fishing question since this is a serious bass fishing live stream. The BPT rule changes next year. You can only use the front looker in one period. What period do you think you guys are going to be using that in? And how are you going to figure out which one is going to be optimal? What's your I know you guys have thought about that. What's your thought process on that?
Yeah, me and Drew, we've talked about that because obviously, if we get the opportunity, we're going to use it. But you can't control it. Like, it got changed and now you have to adjust and figure out how to catch them still. But definitely going to be a lot of strategy go into it. The Bass Pro Tour was already a strategic tour because like you can't just go out, catch 5 and then relax the rest of the day. Like you have to stay on your A game to make sure you don't get run down and passed. Like even if you might have 40 pounds, dude, and you might have your best 5 could go 30 pounds and you could get beat by another guy who's just catching them consistently. So, you just got to adapt. But this year there is going to be a little bit more complex thought process. You're going to have to sit down after practice is over, you're going to have to be like, where do I think I can go and start and get a few bites? Like, do I need to scope right out of the gate? Or do I think I need to wait till the sun gets up? Maybe the first period, capitalize on a morning bite and take advantage of that and then scope the second period. Or maybe, you got a place where, as soon as you pull up, it's game on and you could build a lead. So you might want to start out with your scope and, build yourself a lead and kind of, go throughout the rest of the day, catching one here, one there, just to maintain that pace to stay above the line. So it'll be a lot of thought behind it, but me and Drew definitely talked about it. We're gonna have to find out. I mean, after that first tournament, we'll know more, but it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've got my own feelings about the rule changes, things of that nature, but like those have already been fully fleshed out and aired out over the period of time that we all got those notifications. As far as the actual gameplay of the format goes, it's going to be really interesting because it's not just going to be about what you found. It's also going to be about how you choose to use it in a way that it's not been that in that manner before. Because over the last couple of years, finding the fish to win and do well was a big part of it, and learning how to catch them was a big part of it. And it was a focused, streamlined approach of find the fish, figure out how to catch them. And now it's find the fish, figure out how to catch them, determine whether they can be caught without it, and try and make a decision from there, because there's certain populations of fish that we fish for now that you physically will be unable to catch without it, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically referring to suspended fish and very tough to catch offshore fish, meaning, your traditional like TVA summertime fish once they get beat on. I mean, they get so hard to catch. They're hard to catch with it, much less without it. And learning where that breaking point is in terms of efficiency, where, I really think the big question lies in where is the breaking point in efficiency for when you're going to be better off fishing for hard to catch offshore fish, or when you're going to be better off trying to build a two-pronged approach and fish for a different population without it that you fish for with it. And determining whether it's a fish for one population and tough it out tournament, or whether it's a fish for two populations tournament, is going to be the biggest question. I think that will be the difference maker in people winning and losing tournaments.
Do you feel that either one of you feel that when there'll be a day, not necessarily a tournament, not necessarily a body of water, but do you think there'll be a day that you don't turn it on? Just because you don't want to get off of the pattern that you're currently on for maybe first two periods that you didn't use it?
Oh, you're just meaning like
he means like not turn the graph on.
Not turn your forward facing sonar on.
Even if you could use it for one period, electing to not turn it on in that period.
There will be tournaments where it'll happen, but it's not going to be like a strategic, I just feel like I'm going to do better without it. It's going to be just a tournament where you don't want the extra sound in the water. You will see one this year that will be that way.
There may be two, I think.
It may be two.
Yeah.
One of the two, I think, will be the most opportune tournament for these rules, because it literally will not change how the tournament was fished. Because at that fishery, 2.5 hours is all you were going to get to use scope anyways. And the rest of the day, you would have had to just kind of feel it out, because in a tidal scenario, you only have so long a low tide to even play that game. But, at Saginaw Bay, I would be willing to venture that I'd say 90% of the field, all but 6 or 7 guys won't use it at all. Because those fish are so shallow, so spooky, and in such clean water that it's not going to play a major role in anybody's game on any day. But, it takes a really specific scenario for that to happen. And really there's one specific scenario that creates that. Very shallow grass fisheries, period. Those are the great equalizer. Those are the, and when I say very shallow, I'm not talking 3, 4, 5 feet. I'm talking 1.5, 2 feet or less. Those are the great equalizer where it doesn't factor. It doesn't play any positive role in your tournament day. And those are the ones where it will be shut off. I know, at least for me at Saginaw Bay, more than likely in August, it will be shut off entirely, the whole tournament.
Yeah, I know with me personally, if I was out there like period one, I'm just stinking it up. I'm wanting to turn it on and see what the heck's going on. I'm like, what are these fish doing? What am I missing? And that could be like just a huge clue that could, help you out the rest of the day.
I think that's another part of it too, is, the use of forward-facing sonar and the ability, in this, we call it forward-facing sonar. What it is, it's allowing me to see underwater. Imagine I'm wearing scuba goggles and I'm down there swimming around with it. And there's two purposes of it, intel and actualization, meaning intel is using it to be aware of the environment that they live in, be aware of how they're set up, how they're relating to a bait, how they're relating to are they moving throughout the day through an area, or are they sitting on specific places all day long? And using that intelligence to allow yourself to create more opportunities. Actualization is using it to make a cast. Essentially it's using it from the moment the bait hits to the moment the bait's at the boat. That's the actualization use, which is using it to make sure that every opportunity I have to catch a bass, I catch as many of them as possible. Which is not determining how you fish, but determining how many of those opportunities you take to improving your fishing game is intel and actualization. And I think finding the balance of, is this tournament, is it more important to be in the know from the get-go, from the first period of the day? Or is this a tournament where I need to focus on actualizing more bites and use a time of day where I know I'm going to be around fish to use it to make the most of that opportunity? And finding that balance and where that kind of breaks over is going to be one of the most important factors when you can't use it all day.
You can use it in practice though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can practice with
practice.
So here's the scenario that would spin me out is if let's just say you're at, I'm just going to say like Eufaula or something, some lake where there's a lot of brush piles. It's going to be an offshore brush pile lake, whatever lake it is, pick your lake. So you mark 60 brush piles in practice, you drop your scope down, you look around, the last day of practice, there's 10 of them that are holding fish. Everything looks good. So those are the 10 that you're going to start on. Morning of the tournament, you fish those 10 and you can't get a bite. And you're like, what in the world's going on? Yesterday, like 12 hours ago or whatever, there were not 12 hours, but 24 hours ago, whenever there were fish in these brush piles, it was set up right. There was bait in the area. Everything looked right, but I can't get a bite. You go through your rotation stuff. For some reason, you might only get one bite or something. You're just not getting the feedback. That would be hard, knowing that you have the technology to actually look down there and see what's going on. And, like you did everything you could do the day before. You did your homework. You found productive looking brush piles. They were holding what they needed. They were, small bottles of juice. They were the juice before you left. And now they're like just dry. What's going on? So that would be hard to not want to look down there and see what the heck is going on. What am I missing? So therefore, if I knew those brush piles were holding fish the day before, definitely that second period, I would want to be putting my front looker down there and having a look to see what I'm missing.
Yeah, that's where that strategy I was talking about comes in, because, like you said, you have the technology to make that adjustment and do what you need to find those fish or catch the fish that are still there. But also as soon as you turn it on, well, there you go. That's your period. So if you don't do it quick, you're done. Like the rest of the day is all guessing game. So that's going to be part of the deal. And, you don't want to let that get in your head, like if you did find some fish and you can't catch them. So I think you have to kind of be smart about it in practice, kind of experiment. So instead of just looking for fish in practice, I think it'll be a good idea to try to act like it's tournament. And, you don't want to beat up on them, but try to act like it's the first day of the tournament. And say you found some fish on day one of practice, roll in there on day two and see if you can get a bite without it. And, just see what's going to be the best way to make an adjustment or fish an area that you found in practice with the scope.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm going to come from a direction of, I hope none of our other competitors are watching this, but the most important factors in this are going to be taking your one period very seriously, meaning that counting on it to deliver most of your weight. Objectively, we wouldn't have had rule changes or this conversation if it wasn't for the fact that you can't compete without it weight-wise on a consistent basis. You can't. And so it is the major, breadwinner in terms of these tournaments, in terms of the sheer weight you're going to catch. And so you're going to have to get dialed on it, and you're going to have to understand exactly what you want to fish and exactly what pattern you want to fish it to make that 2.5 hours truly be 2.5 hours and not an hour and 45 minutes and waste 45 minutes running around like a chicken with your head cut off because you're desperate, you're in a hurry, and anything of that nature. So you're going to have to take it seriously. You're going to have to have a good plan. And you're going to have to be really good at maximizing it because, again, I predict roughly 60-65% of all the weight caught all year will be caught in the one period, everybody's period, whatever period they choose it to be. 60-65% of all the weight caught all year will be in that one period a day. Even though it's 33.3% of the day, that's when, majority of weight's going to get caught. Statistics have proved that out over the last few years. It is such a dominant tool for understanding what's going on, making efficient decisions, and actualizing all of those opportunities that you create from those good decisions you make based on things you see in your environment. So, the majority of whether a tournament gets won or lost is going to be based on it, but you're going to be on a lot narrower clock, which means you're going to have to be really dialed on what you're wanting to do and choose a very chronological system. And the other thing is you're going to have to get dialed in practice. Meaning, where I used to go out and just try and find a population of fish, find a efficient population of fish, or populations that are adjacent to one another. It's not just that. I'm going to have to dial the bait. I'm going to have to dial the approach. I'm going to have to dial the cast. Everything that I want to do, I'm going to have to dial that in to the point of I am throwing the best line for the situation, the best rod, the very best hook setup, the very best technique or bait tweak, whatever that may be. I'm going to have to dial that to the nth degree before the tournament starts. Barring any severe changes in conditions, I'm going to have to dial that to the nth degree before the tournament starts so that I don't waste my first qualifying days period getting dialed it just to have to catch double the weight in the second qualifying days period because I wasn't dialed coming in. And so it's going to put a real premium on practice emphasis and really paying attention to detail. And doing hardcore math, paying attention to bite ratios, paying attention to, I'm going to have a stopwatch, aka my phone, in my pocket. And a ton of times this year in practice, I promise you, I will time the engagement of that fish with my bait and keep track of every engagement I have with a fish, all of practice, and math it out for average engagement time, for pace of movement, meaning how fast did I move that bait and for how long, and then how long did I let it sit, and repeat that process over and over again until I reach a point where there's an average engagement time, there's an average time within that engagement that they bite, and then base my cast around where I think that fish should be living and draw some assumptions on where I think they should be living, but use a lot of hardcore math and statistics I gather during practice to dial in exactly how I want to fish that technique in that scenario, which is going to require your tackle to be very dialed and very consistent, meaning you don't make a rod change, you don't make a line change, you don't make a weight change from practice to the tournament to where you are that dialed on exactly how you want to present that bait, and that you use math to kind of figure out the average engagement time or the average time that it takes to take an engagement and turn it into a bite. And you use those numbers to your advantage by repeating that process in the most statistically consistent manner all day, every tournament day, all year, and trust the numbers because, dang it, if there's one thing that you can always trust, it's the math, because the math is just the numerical version of the truth that happened that allows you to make sense of it. And so it's going to be my motto for the year will be trust the numbers, and that's how I'm going to approach it.
He's not analytical at all, is he, Marshall?
Nah, not at all. Hey, he'll break it down. He'll break it down for you.
He said 14-inch drop shot leader. I was like, okay.
Not 14 and a half,
to the numbers.
14 and a quarter.
He's a stats guy, and that's the way he does it. He break it down in the boat.
But hey, I'll leave a 2-inch leader on my loop knot, or a 2-inch tag.
He does. Like the first time he showed me that, I'm like, yeah, you're joking, obviously. And he's looking at me. He's like, nah, I'm not joking. I'm like, dude, he's got a tag this long. It looks like somebody who has no clue what they're doing tied his knots. I said, dude, there's no way you could catch them that good and leave a 3-inch tag on your loop knot. And he said he said he did it because he didn't trust it.
Yeah. He's setting that hook so hard on big fish.
That loop knot, I've tied it 100 times, and I still don't trust it. It feels like it's just going to pull right back out.
I don't know what it is about being able to see the space between the loop and the knot itself, because in a normal knot, that loop exists. It's just very small and you don't see it. But I don't know what it is in my mind about seeing that space. But when I see that space, it tweaks me out because I feel like it's got too much room to move. So I'm like, screw it. If they can't see the million yards of line in front of it, including the braid that's, sometimes bright yellow, if they aren't seeing.
I remember Gerald Swindle saying that.
4-pound, 25-pound. It is pretty much universally unseeable. Fluorocarbon is very hard to see in the water. I'm more concerned about water displacement. But generally speaking, I'm throwing a long tag on something that does not have significant water displacement issues. It's top water. It's very heavy or fast.
It seems to be working for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, two questions kind of based on this one that's up here on the screen. Do you have to notify the tournament director which period you're using the forward-facing sonar in? How does that work? And then also, like Stephanie said, do you think they should have to make it to where everyone uses it at the same period?
I think he's froze up. I was about to say, I think he's froze up.
He's froze or he's playing a really cruel joke on us. One of the two.
Yeah. Hey, Drew, if you can hear us, just close it out and come back in.
While he's doing that, I'll answer that question. You talking about the one right here on the screen?
You think?
Yeah, that one. And then how do you when do you have to tell the tournament director what period you're using the forward-facing sonar in the tournament? Do you have the option the day of, or do you have to tell them I'm going to use it period 3?
We haven't actually talked about it yet, but I think, I guess they'll explain that to us at our meeting, the first one of the year. But I think it's going to be a deal where your official that's in the boat is going to manage it. So, when you'll probably have to tell him, okay, I'm going to use this period, or period 1, period 2, whatever, as my scope period, and he'll probably be the one that keeps track of that, I would say.
So you can do it real time in the boat, like the day of, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's.
I like that better. You get a feel of it.
My understanding was, but you have to designate that before that period starts.
Yeah,
correct.
I think you're right.
You can't be 10 minutes in and be like, change your mind. I want to start right now.
You can't do that. It has to be before the period starts.
You got to declare it like it's it's your Declaration of Independence to use your own equipment.
Yeah. And wait, was this question? Do you think they should have made it where everyone else could use it, or had to use the same period?
Yeah.
As far as that goes, I think the reason they didn't do that, I don't think they want that, because that kind of takes it makes it where they can't do their job, because our job is to figure out a way to give ourselves an advantage, beat the other one, and that makes for good drama TV. That's what they want. They want it entertaining, exciting. And I think that the whole strategic part of it is what's gonna make it entertaining. So I think that's why they didn't do that.
Well, what they want is want Marshall to not have it the third period, and he'd be busting on a big old swim jig, and they want Drew to have it in the third period, and he's busting them on a drop shot.
Yeah,
it comes down to the wire.
And,
they want it different.
They want it where they can create drama in a way that they haven't before, because with the Every Fish Counts format and live scoring, there are certain times where somebody just absolutely plumb gaps the field. But, if their competitors on the final day, 4 or 5 of their competitors haven't used it going in the last period, it could be all bets are off on what ends up happening, because if they haven't used it and the period in which that person gapped the field was the period that they used it, you can create a drama or a scenario where it's like, well, he hasn't used it yet, and he could run from the back and catch up. I also, as a competitor, I love that we get to choose. It rewards strategy. It rewards being really, emphatic on crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and knowing when is going to be the best scenario. Not just necessarily when's going to be the best period to use it, but when is going to be the best period to not use it, and plan according to that. It allows you to strategize a lot. And to be perfectly bluntly honest, the reason they don't do it as well is that the every fish counts format and score tracker, as we saw with 5-fish format, when they switched to that, they require, for the live stream to be super engaging, they require fish catches. They require a high output of fish catches. And that high frequency, if everyone's using it in the same period, they are hitting that high frequency all for a 2.5 hour span. And then that frequency, wherever that happens in the day, either they hit it first thing in the morning and people watch through the first period and then it just falls right off the table, which objectively is what will happen in many tournaments, because again, we would not have this conversation or have this argument if it wasn't the case. If the bank was just as good, or fishing without it was just as good or ever could be, we wouldn't have this conversation. So it will either, it would either drop off really hard, or it would be slow, really good in the second period in terms of catch frequency, and then drop off at the end, or nobody would watch all day until the final period when everyone's using it and catch frequency goes through the roof. And so for their live delivery, for live scoring, you have to have catch frequency, and allowing everyone to choose when they use it will kind of, melt the pace out throughout the day, which I think is a really good decision on their part. I felt like, as far as the delivery of these rule changes goes, and the choice to do it in this manner, I feel like Major League Fishing did a good job of emphasizing strategy and encouraging, even though it's a change in competition, they did a really good job of encouraging competitive, creating a competitive space for a rule change like this to change the way that the field fishes, and gives a big opportunity to people that want to go out and try and master the strategy of when and how to use it. And that part I applaud them for. They took the time. I will say they took the time and the effort to sit down and really hash this thing out and figure out how it would be best both for viewers and for competitors. And that's something I definitely applaud them for.
Hey, Gabe, throw Bass Guy's question up there. That's one that I have as well.
This one?
Yep. No, all the way at the bottom. 925. Yep. Will you guys be able to know when each other's using the? Nope, not at all.
Nope. Okay.
So that will be quiet information all day long. So you won't get a score tracker update that Drew Gill is using forward-facing sonar, or declared forward-facing sonar for the third period.
No, and I believe, Marshall, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's also in conjunction with, I think this year we're only going to receive our score tracker updates by an angler and an angler number, not via a name anymore, which is going, in conjunction with the fact that we're, making it where you choose what period you use it. It would be really easy sometimes to detect what period people are using it. If they go from hardly catching them in the first period to the very beginning of the second period, they just start slaughtering them and catching them almost every cast. It makes it really obvious what, who, and when they're doing. And so I think we're switching that format next year.
So they're not going to tell you that Jacob Wheeler's caught another 3-pounder.
That's the understanding that I have of it.
Okay.
That's interesting. There's going to be some good commentary. I can already hear Chad going, well, it seems like Marshall Robinson has compiled up an unsurmountable lead going into the third period. But let's not forget that Drew Gill has yet to use his forward-facing sonar technology. And JT, he sure knows how to shake his minnow. And then you hear JT, I've been known to shake my minnow back in the day too, guys. Let's go to commercial break. That's going to happen.
That sounds about right.
It's going to be good stuff, man. Yeah, I like the drama. You're right. It's going to add a lot of drama because it's, even though it may look like it's over, like you said, Drew, that's like whoever's fishing with forward-facing sonar that period can really make up a lot of ground in a hurry. it's going to keep it interesting. I think.
As far as strategy goes, they definitely made this the most opportune scenario where, although they've eliminated some level of the competitive strategy that we've had in place, they definitely enriched it in a lot of ways, and I really appreciated with this decision. I think it was one where, if done the wrong way, they could have made it where it kind of decentivized time on the water strategy. In this way, they did it in a manner that they could both, potentially do, some numbers that they wanted to see in their viewership, and, they made it in a way that I think strategy is going to be at a premium just as much as it's ever been. And that, as a tournament angler, honestly, to see a significant format change, although it's not something, personally, if I had a vote on it, that I would have voted for, it's always exciting to see a change in format, a change in strategy, and, that next big quest of, how do I take this style of bass fishing or this approach to it, and how do I learn all the ins and outs of how to play this format to its maximum potential, because that is what Major League Fishing and the Bass Pro Tour have always been about, with zeroing between rounds, with the every fish counts format, with live scoring. It has always been about strategy, and it has always been about in-game decision making, and that's something they've always put it, at a premium, and that's something I'm very excited to continue to expand on this year.
Hey, what are you guys running? I'm shopping for boat batteries. I actually bought some batteries, but what are you guys running as far as batteries, like right now, like the configuration and the setup?
I haven't even got on the lithium wave yet. I'm actually just running AGMs.
Mm-hmm.
But I got 5 back there, and I think I have them in. Maybe in a series.
Like 36 volt for the trolling motor, like three of them for.
Well, no, actually, I didn't improve my voltage. I just improved my the longevity of it.
Yeah,
amp hour.
Yeah.
So you got probably 2
amps, total amps.
You got 2 12s running in parallel.
I think so.
The other 3 in series.
The other 3 in a series. Yep.
That's okay. I'm running 2 and 3. I'm running 2 12-volt 120 amp Epoch lithiums for my cranking battery. They're dual purpose group 27 batteries, so they're pretty compact. They fit in a very narrow space, and they're terrific for running them in parallel is great because you keep your batteries balanced. I've got a Boss system by Dual Pro that keeps my batteries even in terms of total capacity, which flattens one out if one's run a little bit hotter than the other. Keeps my voltage really high on all my units, and it makes it where I never have to worry about cranking my motor, because I always have, essentially I've got one 12-volt battery that's 240 amps running them in parallel like that.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing. And then I run 3 12-volt 300 amp hour batteries for my trolling motor, which are just massive capacity batteries, a little bit bigger than your Group 31s that Epoch makes, and they are fantastic. I can run my Quest.
You could fish all season on those, probably.
I can run my Quest on 10 all day for a 14-hour practice day and still be above 50% on battery capacity. I'll burn about 120 to 140 amps a day when I'm running really hard. And those batteries are great for me because I like having 2 days worth of charge on a battery. That's kind of where I like to fall. And those batteries have been tremendous for me. I can run, and they're really, really sharp power. I mean, really quick power delivery. My Quest is super responsive and snappy, and I can pull my Triton with 2 people, fully loaded with tackle, full of gas. I can go 4.1 miles an hour on my Quest on 10. So it's ridiculously fast. It's wicked fast. And when I've got my brakes in the water too, it's really nice to have that speed and that power and that run time, because they create a lot of drag in the boat. And I like offsetting it by ramping that trolling motor up, still being able to go fast, but having my power brakes in the water to stop me when I need to.
Dang. Okay. That's a lot of juice, man.
Dude, I tell you what.
A lot of amperage. But if you're burning through it that much, you need it. I mean,
if you could install a nuclear reactor in the back of my 21 XP to power everything I had, like 10,000 amp hour little mini nuclear reactor that powers everything, dude, I'd be tickled to death.
You're pretty damn close, Drew.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be pretty nice. Because I'm a power guy. You know, I've got this boat's gonna have its 16 and 12 up front. You know, 2 LiveScope Plus transducers, 2 12s at the console. I got speakers in the boat. I got display screen at the console. I've got brakes. I've got 10-foot blades in the one pump system. I got the Quest, and I've got so many things drawing power on my boat, and so to have all that juice back there is really nice because it's a peace of mind thing. I mean, I, like everyone else, have had issues of like going to the hotel at night, not getting your batteries to charge fully, whatever, and you get 4 hours onto the water, and you go to tap your trolling motor and it goes, beep, beep, and you look down and it's just done, cooked. Or you go to crank your motor and it won't crank. And after many years of being in a 2001 boat with batteries that were less than ideal, being with Epoch, it's a partnership that I have. Obviously, it's a shameless plug, but it's one that is truly shameless because they have been super great to me. They're awesome people, and they make an awesome product. And with them, I was like, this is the space I'm working with. Pack as many amps into this space in whatever battery configuration we can. And they figured out a great system for me, and that's what I do. And this past year, I never had a single day where I was inhibited in runtime whatsoever by batteries at all.
So all of your electronics are running off of 240 amp hours, correct?
Amps, yeah.
Okay. And have you checked what your what your percentage left is at the end of the day?
Yeah, on my 120s, they're both going to fall in the 60-something% range at the end of the day. Generally is where I'm going to fall.
Available to use?
Yep.
And you're leaving everything on? Are you putting anything in standby? Or are you just leaving it all on?
No, I'm not putting anything in standby. I'm leaving it all on. I mean, I'll shut my 3-in-1 or my through hole off when I'm fishing, but I'm not shutting the unit off. I'm just stopping the sonar. And I'm running my brakes off of the cranking batteries as well. So those brakes are running off of, because they run on a 12 volt. So I run them off of my cranking / crafts battery.
You probably got one to each battery, I would assume, on that.
I mean, yes, other than they're in parallel, so they're sharing the load anyways.
True, very true.
So it's just hooked up however Power Brakes wanted me to hook it up. So I've got the brakes on there too. They pull more juice than anything else that I have on those, on those batteries. Obviously, it's 2 40-pound thrust trolling motors on my poles, so they do pull a lot of juice.
Well, they pull a lot of juice, but it's for short periods of time.
Correct, very short periods.
Very short.
They're running as hot as they can run, but for very short bursts.
Yep.
But per the amount of time I run them, they do pull the most. But man, that's what I run. So yeah, I'm at 60-something% on those, and then my trolling batteries, when I run them really hard, I'm going to be between 55 and 62%. Under a normal tournament days load, meaning I'm kind of in pick apart mode, be very precise and catch everything I know is there mode after having a full week of practice. I'm going to be in this 70-something range at the end of a tournament day. It's a shortened day, and I'm not running as hard, so I'm going to be in that mid-high 70s range. So if tournament days, I can get about 4 tournament days out of those 300 amp hour batteries.
And your charge time is way less in the evenings. You're probably in 2-3 hours you're fully charged.
Most nights I'd say I'm in the 4 and change range.
Okay.
They charge quick. Dual Pro's got great systems for chargers.
Almost by the time you go to bed, you're already charged up, which is great.
Yeah. If there's one part of my boat that I've got that I feel strongly that the way I've got it, my system rigged is, top 0.1% of all bass boats in the country. It's my power system from my batteries to my chargers. I had a lot of issues with batteries in college, and it was one issue that I was like, if I can ever get this alleviated, I don't want to deal with this headache ever again of worrying about chargers running, worrying about them staying, operable all season, and worrying about batteries running all day. And so now that I finally got the opportunity to not have that be an issue anymore, I am so grateful that it's not.
I went to all lithiums a couple of years ago, and it's the best decision I've ever made.
Dude, lithium power is unbelievable.
Well, just for the fact that I can monitor it all. I know what I have with 2 clicks on my phone. Yeah, it's an expensive endeavor, but I'm like you, Drew. I've dealt with so many battery issues where you get to the lake, you know what? I don't do it for a living, but I live to do it, right? Like,
Yep, 100%.
Work 5 days a week to go out to the lake on Saturday morning to not have battery issues, and you get to the lake on Saturday morning and at 9 o'clock, like you said, you look down at your trolling motor and it goes do 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 do. What the hell? Like I worked all week to turn around and go back home. And you go back home and you figure it out, and then you go spend $300 on batteries that you're going to last a year, and you're going to do it over again. So buy once, cry once, I think is the saying. And that's what I did the last time is I bought them, and man, I haven't looked back. I can pull it up right now sitting in my office and see what my batteries are, which they're all sitting at 100%. I can almost guarantee. So
what do you guys got going on over winter? You fishing any derbies, or you just kind of what's the winter plans?
Oh, we got some derbies. I know I do. I got a bunch of little derbies I like fishing around the house. And I like, we live in the area where our climate's like, it's just cold enough to where the water gets down in the, the mid to high 40s, and at the coldest, but it's never cold enough to where the fish get super lethargic. So you can always, go thrash them pretty good. So this time of year, dude, it don't matter what lake, any of the lakes around here, I'm fishing every tournament I can. So, yeah, that's what I spend a lot of my off time. That's what I'll be spending my next few months doing. Me, my brother, or me and my dad, or me and my high school fishing partner. We'll be fishing some of those local tournaments.
What lakes do you got close to your house?
Man, we got a ton. So it starts from, you got Savannah River, you got Joe Cassie, Kiowee, Hartwell, Russell, Clarksville, and those are all in order. And then you got Murray, you got Watery, Monticello, Greenwood, Santee, Wiley, Norman, Lanier. I mean, we got so many, it's just stupid. So I can really
how far away are those? Like, what's the
not a single one of those other than Santee is further than like 2.
That's awesome.
So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
you got the Ohio River 40 minutes away.
Yeah. No,
I live in the wrong part of the country is what I live in. I can tell you that.
No, I tell Drew, like, I got plenty of places I can go fish, but I still don't have anywhere like he does where he can go catch, 25, 26 plus guaranteed. Like, we get some pressure, but you can always find an open tournament. But I think we're going to fish a couple this week. We got one on Lake Kiowee, which is above Hartwell, and then another one on Lake Greenwood. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's above Murray.
Okay.
We got a couple we don't get in this.
Don't let Drew try to fool you. It's Southern Illinois fishing isn't like great, but
no, he says it ain't, but like the quality seems like it's there.
Some days.
Yeah, some days.
They're in there for sure.
Yeah.
They're there to be had if you have the time / ability to go find them. I mean, but it's only because in your part of the country, a good day is if I see 5 big ones, I caught one of them. Around us, dude, if you figure it out on and it's not every lake. We've got our suck holes for sure, especially toward like south of me. You talk about like Rend, Lake of Egypt, Crab Orchard, all those lakes, they can really suck bad, like really bad. And they, I mean, especially Egypt, they have their days where they're good, but most of the stuff that's really, truly sneaky or very good is a little bit more central. It's a little bit more like, a lot of our viewers on this probably are, at least somewhat familiar, Missouri guys or Illinois guys would be familiar. A lot of the stuff from like Effingham area to Clinton, a lot of those lakes in through that whole strip, east half of the state, central part of the state. There's a lot of really sneaky places through that section that are very good, and are ones that I frequent. But man, it's just a tremendous opportunity because so many of our guys in this part of the country are, we don't have a million tournaments, so there are untapped populations in our lakes for sure. Because we don't, if we got a tournament a month, within an hour of me, that's an achievement. So, for me in the winter, my winter plans are go fun fish as much as I can, barring any ice. But we, not super significant tournament plans. A little bit of pre-fishing. I'm gonna go down to Harris in January and poke around. But for the most part, I'm gonna go saltwater fishing. I'm gonna get this new Triton rigged, ready to go, do a little fun fishing, and the season will be here before we know it because we hit the road for Conroe at the very end of January, which is a little bit over a month and a half away.
Marshall, the nice part about Southern Illinois, a lot of the lakes are, at least the nice part for us, a lot of the lakes are horsepower restricted lakes. Mm-hmm. So you just can't throw your, like our home lake, which is an hour from our house. You can't even idle a big boat there.
Yeah, we have a couple like that. Like they're 9, 25, 90, like a couple of small lakes, and they can be good too because of that.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to put a little boat on there. Now, some
JB,
of them
which lake are you referring to?
Sorry. Cedar.
Got you. Yeah.
Some of them guys, they rig those little boats, Some of them, they'll pull up with a 9.9, a little 14-foot John boat, and a 16-inch screen on the front. I'm like,
but you're looking at two guys that have
right.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I would do it. I promise you, if I fished a lot of those lakes, like I'm thinking about it right now because we have like 4 or 5 of them, and I grew up on one. It was a 90 restriction, so you could put a little, a decent sized bass boat on it. But I'm thinking about getting me one, decking it out, just so I can go whoop up on those fish in those lakes that don't get targeted as much,
Yeah, 16-foot boat, 10-horse motor with 3 lithium batteries, 2 12-inch graphs, LiveScope, the whole deal.
Yeah, that's hardcore. You got to set up. Yeah.
Well, dude, you say that, but let's be honest. Like, that's what we got here.
Yeah.
Rend Crab Orchard would be our biggest lakes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
In that part of the state. It depends. Do you consider Carlisle a lake?
No.
Then Rend and Crab Orchard.
Right. And then Kentucky's what, 2 hours from us, Gabe?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And every one of those, even the big lakes that we just mentioned, I don't have any qualms to taking my 16.
They're like 2,700 acres, and they don't have a lot of big boats on them. So it's a 16-foot wide aluminum John boat. It just takes a while to get from point A to point B, which is can be a hindrance. It can keep you in an area a lot longer instead of sampling the lake, but you always feel safe out there for the most part.
Yeah,
Rend can get wicked, but it's got to be the right wind direction.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's the first time I ever took a wave over my boat was on Rend years ago.
And it's not worth it. Never a day have you ever put your boat in on Rend Lake and been like, this was a worthwhile use of my time.
No. It's so shallow too. I mean, you get a good win, and it just blows everything out, man.
Well, Drew, I will say there's one tournament down there a year that is worth it, and it's a USA Bass and Regional. It's $5,000, and you only got to fish for one day.
That is a valid point. But any of those USA Bass and Regionals I've ever fished, I look at the schedule, I'm like, well, I can go to Rend, I go to Shelbyville, or I can go to Patoka. Or I could go to Kentucky Lake or Cumberland. And so I just drive to KY or Cumberland. And I skip over all those other lakes. So I'm like, I'm doing this because I want to have a good time fishing a team tournament with a friend. And I don't want to yell at my friend because I want to be on a lake where there's fish. And so I don't go to Patoka. I don't go to Rend. I don't go to Shelbyville. I go somewhere else.
Yep. I know. We got some local lakes that are 30 minutes away, and I would rather drive an hour and 20 minutes than to spend time on that 30-minute lake. Because
I will say this: 4 fish limit in a high school tournament Rend. I had 8 pounds one time. Not to brag, but I had 4 2-pounders that day. 4 16-inchers. It was unbelievable day of fishing. We finished 6 out of like 7
y'all make
boats.
it feel bad for y'all, man. Dang.
I mean, hold on. Remember that Lake of Egypt that he was talking about a while ago?
Yeah.
It took like 4 fish, 21 pounds over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
that was Trevor McKinney, wasn't it?
Yeah, Trevor.
Yeah, with a 7.
Yeah. Egypt.
Wait, but what's the limit?
Egypt is our Hartwell.
It's got a slot limit, so they let you keep 4 over. I think it's over 16 inches.
Yeah, and then you can keep 1 between 12 and 14. generally. But yeah. Well, Egypt is our heart. Well, it's got the fish in it to do well if you can find them and catch them. But the issue is generally catching them. It's our most pressured tournament fishery in the state, I think, by far, in terms of just number of tournaments, because it's a really small lake and there's 2 fairly sizable ramps on it for the size of the lake. And so they just pack it full of tournaments all year long, from February back around to December when it gets some ice on it.
Private lake as well.
And it's owned by is it owned by Marion? I don't know who owns it.
It's owned by the homeowners association.
Gotcha.
The lakes homeowners.
Yeah.
Association.
So they got some squirrely dock fishing rules, meaning you're not supposed to fish within however far of docks. Is that abided by any bass fisherman ever? Absolutely not.
Unless you have a GoPro in your boat and you create content on that lake.
Correct. Unless you create content,
somebody will let you know.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, the comment section will blow up. But yeah, I mean, the problem is that rule doesn't stick for anything because nobody abides by it, and so it's kind of annoying because you don't want to break the rules, and choose not to. But chances are in a tournament, there's a lot of times where you're going to get beat by somebody that's not deciding to play by the rules of the Great Lake of Egypt or whatever. But
I can see
Lake of Egypt
head just spinning right now, going, "You can't fish in dock."
Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
that's what I was brought up on.
You don't understand it, Marshall. The front end of the lake looks like Lake of the Ozarks with the amount of docks.
Mm-hmm. Well, it ain't got that many, but I do know one thing: if you shine your scope underneath those docks, almost any one, there's plenty of fish under there that they haven't got that much pressure, and that makes it even harder to not like skip a little jig up underneath there or something.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, and there's a whole off limits cove too. They just don't want you to fish anywhere on Lake of Egypt. And the other part of it is in a section of the state that has a lot of smaller lakes that have horsepower restrictions. Lake of Egypt is one of the only fisheries in that section that does not have horsepower restrictions.
Right.
And like in Illinois, the great power that determines where tournaments are held or aren't held on a regular basis is horsepower restrictions. If a lake in our state doesn't have significant horsepower restrictions, it gets a lot of tournament pressure. Clinton, Lake of Egypt, Shelbyville, Rend, even though most of those lakes kind of suck, they have to have tournaments on them because everyone that owns an actual like fiberglass boat, they can't fish tournament other than trolling motor only on any of the other lakes. So that's where all the major tournaments are held.
Hey, Jonathan, I got a funny story about your brother. We were fishing this Lake of Egypt, and we were fishing in the 9.9 Bass Club years ago, and it was tough. I mean,
that was the day it snowed.
No, this was a different tournament, but it was one of them mornings where you just couldn't sniff a bite. It was just slow. It was super slow. You catch 1 or 2 on a topwater plug, but it just got pretty. It sucked for the first couple hours. And Alan calls me. And I answered the phone, and he goes, "Dude, I'm smashing them." I'm like, "What do you mean you're smashing them?" I'm killing them. He's like, I got three overs already. I'm like, "No, you don't." And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Where are you at?" And he's like, I'm on that same side of the lake as I saw you before you went over another side of the lake. And you go around that point there, and there's a bunch of buoys right there, and you just keep on going in there. And I'm back that second point back there, and they are just killing it. And I said, no wonder. That's like the off limits private cove. You're not supposed to be fishing in there. No wonder anybody can catch 3 overs out of that. And I said, you better get out of there. You're going to get in trouble. But
Gabe, I was
going to say, he found the best cove in the whole lake.
Yeah, 100%. I don't remember. Have we talked about this? Have you ever been to Newton?
No.
I have not. No, that's so.
Okay. So there's at Newton, there are buoys demarcating where you cannot go above on the lake, and there is a second hot water discharge above at the very top of the lake above this line of buoys that's like 1/2 or 3/4 of a mile above those buoys. And the legends have it that there is just an ever-loving pile of bass that live up there, and I would love one day for them just to decide to give me a hall pass to go fish it, because if they did, I think I would drop everything just to go do it one time.
Is there lake
because
patrol?
I've heard legends of, oh, dude, there's cameras. There's DNR out on Newton every single week, generally a couple days a week. So It's definitely well documented, and people don't get away with it. But the legends and the lore say that they're just up there.
Yeah, I've heard. So, what was it? Egypt up in the buoys, like at the discharge, certain times of the year. I've heard it's phenomenal up there, and that's the sections with the size of your house. Like it's not a giant section of the lake.
But they're spawning up there. There's like 10 counters on beds up there. I'm sure you can't get up there. You know what they should do, Drew, is they should partner up the city of Newton or whatever county it is. They should partner up with some mom and pop retail shop, or maybe somebody like a meat shop that makes meat sticks or something, whatever it is, some local company that makes a product that they can sell in wherever.
Hold on. We're going to tax the shit out of it in the state of Illinois. I'm sorry to say.
Well, yeah, that'll happen. But they should put some like golden coin or golden wrapper, and there's one of them. And if you get the golden coin, you get to fish the first discharge on Newton for half a day. And you got, either you got to pay like $500 for the chance, or there's something else to it, but it's kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory is what I'm thinking of,
Dude, local anglers would be walking in there treating it like it's scratch-offs. Ooh, this charcuterie board of sausage sticks. All right, and they buy it, and they don't even bother taking it to their vehicle. They just open it up on the counter, and they just start flipping through it and go, "Oh man, it's not here." And I don't even like smoked sausage, and they just hand it back.
Yeah, give me another 100 and just throw them in the trash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I work in convenience stores on the daily, and it's the guys that walk in and they'll buy scratch-off tickets and they scratch the little bar at the bottom. They're not even the fun of a scratch-off ticket, and then they go scan it on the machine to see if they won. It's like you just spent $50 to scan or to scratch a 1-inch section and go scan it on a damn machine.
I mean, that's when you know you're being
$50.
That's when you know you're in it for the result, not the experience. You've had a be real moment with yourself in the mirror, and you're like, this is why I'm doing this. And I'm not even going to dupe myself anymore and build my anticipation. I'm just going to cut to the chase. It's like, it would be like going to Thanksgiving dinner with the focus that the turkey's the objective, and you just get turkey, no sides. You don't even get a drink. You just eat dry turkey the whole time because dang it, that's what you're there for. So you might as well go whole hog.
Yeah. And then there's the one gentleman that sits down. He grabs out his like lucky nickel out of his pants, and he literally milks one scratch off for 10 minutes. I've seen that guy. I've seen him literally. He scrapes one off. He kind of looks at it, compares it. Okay. And then he goes to the next one. It'll be somewhere between 8 to 10 minutes. So that guy's getting his money's worth. I mean,
well, hold on. You forgot to say on the way up to or when he got to the counter, he asked the clerk what number that scratcher was on, and if it's got the black line on it or the white line on it, because that makes a big difference.
There's mental strategy. I don't think it works. Whatever you do, it's
something.
You either win or you don't. I mean, that's just the way it is. Hey, one more question, man. We'll wrap this up.
Always in a hurry.
If you guys had, this is for each Marshall and Drew. If you had 2 hours to fish one lure and the fish were going to absolutely crush it, what would you be throwing? Doesn't matter time of the year, doesn't matter lake, doesn't matter, what kind of cover. It's just you tie that lure on, you go to the water, and they're just going to go crazy over it.
Yeah. It's going to be a topwater. I don't know which one. But that's a pretty basic answer. I honestly feel bad saying that because that's pretty. I mean, that's what everybody's going to say. So either that or I'll give another one. Okay. So if it wasn't a topwater, which it would be, it would probably be straight braid to some kind of swim jig or extremely light swim bait that I could wind right under the surface and almost just make that a topwater bite too. So something I can visually see them biting, and I can hit them. Bait caster.
Okay.
I'm taking that all day.
65-pound and you just crack them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You would have 3 broken ribs and 2 bruised ribs by the time you
but a live well full of them.
That's right.
For
man,
I mean the top.
Don't you say drop shot? Gosh dang it!
He's gonna say it's jig head now. Nah.
We got to put the topwater box aside because topwater should universally be the answer to this question.
Yeah, it's too basic.
Other than that,
right.
I think
it's been a popular answer.
Topwater's, it's the most fun thing to ever throw in your life. Anything topwater, it's amazing. Visual bites, generally hard hook sets, fun stuff. I would say for me, something that I used to get to experience a lot that really just has kind of fizzled over the last few years. Not saying it can't be done elsewhere, but it's been not as relevant over the last few years. I used to love throwing a big plug, like a big crankbait, like one that gets 20 feet deep, 14, 15-pound fluoro on a really like glass composite rod and just grinding that thing super fast and just like those bites that just knock your hand off the reel and you pull it and just whoa, whoa, whoa. And they're just head shaking 20 feet deep with a giant crankbait across their face. That was super fun. And but I'd say the one that I regularly get to indulge myself in, that I absolutely love and will never not love, 1/2 ounce tungsten weight, 3/0 worm hook, 4/0 worm hook probably, and
don't say a big worm.
And a big worm.
Holy cow, dude! Kick him off the thing. Kick him off the
dragging it. You're counting every rock, every little bit of gravel. And it just goes donk. And like
I was hoping he was going to say like a big creature bait in a lay down or something like that.
No.
For the water.
I knew where he was going. He knows. I think he said it on purpose because if you could come up with the just worst scenario, just like if there was one way I wouldn't want to catch a bass, it would legit be on an old monster.
When you see like 18 to 20 of them just sitting there dead on the bottom where they just look like rocks, and you throw a big worm out there and it gets 2 feet above the bottom and you see them all come up and you hop it one time and it just goes tonk. You're telling me when that's 70 feet out on 18-pound fluoro and you get to reel it all tight and like take 3 steps back across the front deck and crack one and hear that line go. That isn't
at least tie a jig on. God's sakes,
because you got the 18, 15, 18, 20 feet of water on top of that hook set too. So when you hit it and that thing's mouth opens, it's just weight. And like you just
I got PTSD. Because when me and my dad started
trying to talk you into it.
Yeah, no, look, when I started fishing, like the first tournaments I ever fished, me and my dad went to Lake Bowen. It's one of those lakes that have a horsepower restriction. We were fishing Thursday nighters, right? Well, I'm getting off of school, and we go and, we fish a couple hours before dark and it's good and all. We're catching them on top water. You can see visually, your hand in front of your face. That's fun, You can see where you're throwing your bait. That's good. Well, dude, it gets dark. He's like, man, he said, this was back, he was still teaching me how to fish. He's like, one of the best ways to catch them at night is throwing this old monster in brush piles. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, we'll go do that.
Dude,
I bet you I threw that big worm in like 40 brush piles, felt every limb, never felt a bite. That's what I didn't feel. I'll tell you what I did feel is me launching it 50 yards up in somebody's yard or hitting their dock or landing on their porch. So I'm done with that. I never caught I bet you I've caught 2 bass in my life on it. So I'm
really.
I'm out. Yeah,
dude. Like for me,
whoa, 2 bass on an old monster?
I'm not kidding. I've caught 2.
And you call yourself a bass fisherman? I mean, come on now.
Okay,
hey, I've caught them.
It's not my favorite way, but I sure can catch them on it.
I've never caught a largemouth on a Carolina rig in my life, so that's one little side note for sure.
Really?
Yeah, that is objectively true. But I've tried it. Not a huge fan, whatever. I know it catches a bunch of big fish, so that's beside the point. But like for me, it's a nostalgia thing. Like the first tournaments that I really latched onto and started watching because of proximity were the FLW ledge tournaments on KY. Yeah. Those OG, mid-late 2000 teens tournaments where they'd get out there and they'd throw a big crankbait out there and lock it up 3 casts in a row, or you'd sit there and watch Buddy Gross throw a big worm out there and he'd just drag it, and then they pan away and they come back and here's Buddy Gross. It almost looks like he's on the same cast. But then An hour and a half later, guess what? Buddy Gross is making the same cast, and he goes, shoo, and then he just points at it and whines, and he just skis one end.
Hold on, Drew. What is with Buddy Gross pointing everything at the and just reeling it in? For God's sake, there is not a bend in his rod.
No, he might as well throw everything on a heavy. Yeah. He does do that.
He might as well just throw the reel. He might as well just take the reel and whip it around, throw it out there.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed that. I mean, it is just.
Oh, and he doesn't even reel it with his with the back of his hand facing him. He just reels it with his palm facing him. He's not even trying to play around. He's just open hand palm winding it. It's so cool. And then he'd ski it up like this, and either he'd boat flip it, or you'd see, just like all the classic FLW tournaments, you'd see him about 20 feet from the boat. You'd see him take that back step, and you're like, here it comes. And they'd get that net and put it right on the rub rail and just pull them in and scoop them, sling them in. And that little green FLW fishing banner would pop up, and it'd be fish number 9, 4 pounds, 11 ounces. And you'd be like, that's bass fishing right there. You know, that was super cool. I was an FLW Kentucky Lake diehard when I started getting into bass fishing, and those tournaments really touched my soul, which is why big crankbait, big worm. If there's 2 baits, I can go out and blast them for 2 hours straight.
You did miss one that I would love to blast them on for 2 hours.
Hair
jig.
An
old KY bait.
Hair jig. Spoon.
Big old spoon.
Spoon, yeah.
That's fun. I think, you know what? I think it's, for me, to answer this question, even though I asked it to you guys, but a lot of times it's the bait that I haven't been catching fish on. You know, traditionally in winter, we're throwing a lot of jerk baits. I mean, I know everybody throws jerk bait all year long, but you get tired of catching them on a jerk bait after a while. The first time you catch them on a chatterbait or something winding, at that point, that moment when you switch from one technique to a different technique, sometimes that can be your favorite lure to throw.
That's the world's best answer, because I 100% agree with everything you just said, other than a jerk bait getting old. But yeah, like when you go from one time of year to the next, and
it was the concept I was after, not really the bait.
Yeah, because you make a technique adjustment, and this technique has not worked for 2 months, and then you try it out just because maybe it's just far enough along, and it does. It's like it's a breath of fresh air. You get yourself, especially when you fish as much as me and Marshall do. I mean, do you feel that same way when we're fishing, you know, almost every day for 8 months on end?
Yeah, no, you definitely the other day I went fun fishing, and I had 4 different rods with me, and I know what they're going to bite. Like when I see a fish, I know what I'm going to throw at them. But, you know, every now and then, as long as I'm not in a tournament, I'm going to just pick something dumb up. Not nothing completely stupid, but maybe if I'm catching them on a worm on light line and I know they'll bite it, I'll be like, well, you know, I'm going to throw this jig on 17. I don't care if he bites it. If he does, I'm going to crack him, you know, and I'm going to throw some diversity in there.
Yeah. Well, it's like in winter, you know, you're fishing, you're looking at that shallow laydown, those nice juicy laydowns that are up there in 2, 3, 4 foot of water. And every once in a while you'll throw your jerk bait around them and you might pull 1 or 2 off. But man, it gets February. You sneak up there and you flip something up there like a tube or a jig. Well, nothing happens. The next day you do it. And that first day when there's some that slid up there and you get to actually pitch something in tight and do some power fishing, that's fun. And a lot of times nobody else is doing it too. So you can actually go down and fish all the good stuff and nobody's doing it.
That's what I was just going to say, Gabe. The best part of the only add to what the back end of yours is if you're the first guy that figures it out.
Oh yeah.
That time of the year, like the first guy that's, you know, I'm flipping in mid-February on the first warm day, and we've had a big rain the week before and it's all muddied up. Like you give me muddy water in mid-February, I guarantee I'm going to 2 foot of water. I'm throwing something big and heavy up there. And
finding that first school that pulled out.
Absolutely.
Pulled out. Those spawners that are just stupid and hungry. Oh man, that doesn't get any better than that. That's fun.
The first school of 6-pounders that goes out is real fun.
Yeah, I don't care what they are. I like to catch dumb fish. Like you've been having to really work really hard, and then all of a sudden you make a move and you check something, and there's this group of fish that are really easy to catch, and it's like, dude, I earned that. You know, I deserve an easy day.
Yeah. About 2 years ago, and every year prior to that, dude, Newton, and if you were the first one to the punch when they started getting out on the first, there'd be 2 or 3 places they get out on before anything else. And you get out there, and you'd look on scope and you'd swear it was just carp piled up. And it's just like 80 to 100 of them that are all 18 to 23 inches. And anything you throw out there, you could throw your shoe out there. And when I say you could throw your shoe, literally, if you put trebles on the bottom of like a Walmart, size 9 women's flip flop and weighted it, you could guarantee throw that out there and slash it like it's a spoon and catch one. I mean, they're so dumb. There's so many big ones. And like when you're the first one to the punch on any bite, it's always way more fun.
Yeah, it's good. Those are the days that we dream of. All right, let's wrap it up, man. It's been over 2 hours. This is fun, man. It's a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of random topics. Just straight
we started
up
sideways, we got right in the middle, and we went back sideways again. I love
it, man. That's what it's all about. Just a couple people on here having a conversation about whatever. Any closing thoughts, closing remarks, any shout outs or anything before we wrap it up?
Shout out to y'all for having us on here, man. I appreciate it. I love stuff like this. It's good, like you said, just talk it up and have a good time. Talk about everything that went down, everything that's going down. But yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, same here, man.
Yeah.
It's fun.
This is not my first time on with you guys, and I really hope it's not my last because I always have a great time coming on and talking fishing, whatever else ends up coming up, whether that's mice and hotels or saltwater fishing or why big worms are overrated. But regardless, it's been a really good time. I very much appreciate you guys' evening, and anytime you want me on, I'm always game.
I got a note down here next time we have Marshall on to not talk about old monster worms and start a trigger war here. So.
Yeah. I was gonna say too. I see where Drew's got his tag in his below his name right there. I forgot to put mine, but if anybody wants to follow along with me, my Instagram is Marshall Robinson Fishing.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I'll try to leave that in the description box. But yeah, everybody's watching can remember that. I didn't even notice.
Marshall, you got the trophy anywhere near you?
I don't. I'm actually not at my house.
Yeah. That's a big old sucker too. What's that weigh? Did you ever weigh it?
Pretty good bit.
Yeah.
It's got to be around 30, low 30.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd probably say, yeah.
It's pretty stout. All right, we're going to take you guys out of here, and then we're going to give away a Baitworks gift card. But once again, appreciate it, man. It was fun, and we'll do it again down the road sometime.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you, everybody watching.
Thanks.
All right, cool. That was awesome, man. That was fun. We could talk all night.
I love getting something sideways like that where you get to talk about just the banter back and forth. I mean, they got the fish together quite a bit this year. They're good buddies, and to see them go back and forth is always fun.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I was gonna say Drew's definitely got to buy Marshall a couple packs of old monsters for stocking stuffers this Christmas. I mean,
I was gonna say you gotta. It's kind of like the banana in the boat. You just sneak those in the boat, like throw them in the center console when he's not looking.
Right. All right. Let's let this run for just a couple minutes. We got some loyal listeners on here that hung out with us.
We still got a couple people on.
Yeah, we got a few on here.
Good.
That was fun. A lot of good questions. I'm going tomorrow, man. I'm gonna probably.
You taking your sailboat or what?
Yeah, I'm not too excited.
I think it's supposed to blow tomorrow, isn't it?
It's supposed to blow. Yeah, but it's supposed to get up in the mid-50s.
I was texting with a buddy of mine who's fishing that team championship. I know Darius was on here. I don't know if he still is. He was on here earlier. The team championship is down in Kentucky tomorrow. Starts tomorrow. The Bassmasters Team Series qualifier, whatever that thing's called. So they've been down there, I think, since Saturday or Sunday and put some work in. But my gosh, it's been cold the last couple of days. 10 to 20. I mean, I guess it's not terrible. It'll be up
to 30 something, I think. Last I checked.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think. I'm gonna look at it real quick,
but then we're gonna drop. The bottom's gonna fall out again on Thursday and Friday. So
I know. Well, that's why you got to go. If you see it's going to be like 50, you got to go.
Well, I mean, it didn't get much above freezing today or Monday.
So, yeah, today was cold, man.
This afternoon, it wasn't too bad. Like I noticed, about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, it started that sun sun was out and I was out of the wind a little bit, and it wasn't too bad out. But
yep, it hit 34 there for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Right around 2. You're right, about 1-ish to 3, and then right after that, it started getting cold again.
You got
We got 9 to 16 with gust 34.
Oof.
Yeah. And,
you got a thermometer in your mail truck?
No, but I'm not in the LOV anymore. I'm actually in a van. So I got pretty good heat in that truck now.
You're in a different one now?
Yeah. Yeah. My other one, the frame completely rusted out and it cracked in half.
How many miles were on it?
There's no way of knowing. It's rolled over multiple times.
Was it all your miles?
It was a 90 model.
When did you get that one?
Oh, I had that truck for I only had that truck for about a year and a half because my other truck was the one that the tree fell on. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, and it dented the rail, like the back of those LOVs. They have a door, like a door that pulls up and is a track on the inside of the back of it. That tree hit and it dented the track on the inside, so you could no longer pull up slide up the rear door, and it also dented the track that the driver's side door slides on. So you couldn't get
in or out or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. It was too expensive to replace. And that was an 88 model.
So they upgraded you to a 90 model.
I moved up to a 90 model. Yes.
So is the one now like a 2024?
It's a 21. It's a Metris. It's a Mercedes Metris, kind of a minivan that they've modified to deliver mail in. And
do you like it?
No, it's okay. It's okay. It has its pluses and its not pluses, but I think now that the pluses outweigh the negatives.
Okay.
It's harder on your body because you're moving around a lot more. You're having to reach a lot more, and things are just in weird spots. But it's got good air conditioning, which the LOV did not have air conditioning. It's got good heat, and I'm not breathing exhaust. The one thing about those older LOVs is they put off a lot of exhaust. So you would literally come home from work and smell like you were an auto mechanic every day, which isn't too big a deal if you're just wearing a shirt, but something like an actual jacket that you don't typically wash every day.
And then it smells like
you had to wash it, or you just
the next day and the next day and the next day.
Yeah, and I'd spray it down with Febreze, or I'd spray it down with like bathroom deodorizer, and then I would hang it out in the garage. And by the next day, it was tolerable, but you smell like whatever.
Yeah,
and it just, I don't know. Anyway, I don't have to deal with that anymore, so that's nice. I almost take that over the efficiency of the LOV. I'd rather take the non-exhaust over the efficiency of the LOV.
How about I understand that you've been doing it for years and years and years, but how about the AC, man? Like that's got to be a big upgrade.
It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
You're not as wore out at the end of the day.
No. You can just turn it up a little bit, just enough to kind of even it out. You don't want to chill yourself down too much, because then when you get out, it's like a shock. Your body goes into shock almost.
Well, but you also don't want to sit there in 104 sauna all day long. I would imagine 104 is probably the lighter side of things. It gets pretty hot in those LLVs. I know that.
Yeah, those LLVs, like,
because your engine's like right here in front of you.
Well, the exhaust runs right where you're sitting on top of the exhaust,
right?
And it's not insulated very well, and it's got a huge window in the front that just produces a lot of solar energy. And I've had plus you don't have air conditioning that's sucking out some of the humidity. So I've had a thermometer on the dash and it's read 124, and I've heard of guys having it being 130 degrees. And when you factor in the humidity,
and you're not moving fast enough to get airflow in.
No, you don't get much flow. You just get a case of swamp ass and you just kind of live there. That's just the way it is. I've
been around you after you've got out of the mail truck. I mean, it's
raunchy, man. It is what it is, man.
I know what to say. It's raunchy. I mean, you can see like the physical exhaustion.
Yeah.
You may have not walked but 10 feet that day, but you've been sitting in a sauna for 6 hours, just sweating it all out. Like,
yeah, it's not for everybody.
No,
it's not for everybody.
I'm out.
And then you got to walk around in the cold too. You got to get fired up. You got to get your mind right, man. That's one of them jobs where you got to get your mind right. Whatever day it is, it may be extremely hot or it may be extremely cold. And you, some point in that morning, you got to take a deep breath and you got to get like fired up, because you know you're going to be going out into some elements that are not perfect. I mean, we're not like Marines or, you know, special ops or anything, but just for a normal job, you know, you got to deal with some of the conditions.
I think about you getting your mind right, like especially this time of the year. You're not only battling the elements, you're also battling shortness of daylight and the fact that there's a bunch of us crazy people out here that just ordered a bunch of stuff off of Amazon.
Oh, dude, Friday, day after Thanksgiving, the traffic was horrendous. And Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, it was insane. Right. It was like you had to, every parking lot, you had to just be super defensive and go through the parking lot really slow, because there were cars. People were getting their cranberry sauce and their Thanksgiving turkey and all the stuff that they get, all the fixings. Mm-hmm. And you were in the way the whole time. It was super dangerous. And yeah, the other stuff you said, exactly. All the parcels and stuff. We're balls to the wall right now. I mean, it's in overdrive and we're just trying to keep up. Oh yeah, he's driving a ProMaster. He's got heat and AC. Heck yeah, brother. I know how that feels. Those ProMasters are big. It's like you can actually stand up inside of them. They're like a full size.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I just got the little Metras. Most of the guys that have those are on walking routes, I believe. Yeah. You can put 5,000 parcels in the back of a ProMaster. Seems like.
you and Alex are two postal nuts here. So
yeah. We've suffered together, I'm sure.
Well, is this the little minivan, like minivan that you got now with the big long duck nose front end?
No, it's a Mercedes Metris. You see people that deliver like flower florist or maybe a prescription, you know, Broadway prescription. One of it's a common vehicle that you see a lot of folks driving stuff around, delivering stuff around. So it's just kind of your average size minivan. It might be a little bit smaller than a minivan.
Okay. That's not what I just Googled it. That's not what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's a ProMaster. It's Mercedes. It's got some weirdness to it, like the ignition's on the left side. Yeah.
Is that it?
That looks right. But ours is white on it, obviously. But yeah. The ignition is on the left side. So you got steering wheel and your ignition is over here, which is weird. You know, we're used to it being on the right. And it has some kind of strange. Yeah, that's it right there. Yep. That's my ride. It works out all right, man. Ain't that big a deal. I mean, you got the dual doors in the back swing open versus the LOV slid up. So you're always walking around those doors. And the other day when the wind was blowing like 30 out of the north, I about got my hand chopped off because I had that door open and the wind caught it and it slammed it shut. Luckily, I was to the left of it. But if I wouldn't have been paying attention, I could have definitely lost a finger.
No, I was thinking there's some. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. The old cell bills. Man, Postal Service is an interesting job. You have to work there to understand it.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Oh, you're thinking of that's the duck. That's what they call the duck. Those are supposed to be coming. That's the next generation. We're supposed to be getting some of those sometime.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah, I don't know about that thing. That's crazy.
Well, it looks like you could at least stand up in it.
Yeah. It's like how much room do you need to swing into your mailbox with that thing though? See the turning radius and the wheelbase and stuff? The Metris, that's the thing I don't like about the Metris. It's got a little bit longer wheelbase, and you can't whip in there like you can with that LLV. So it's a totally different vehicle.
Well, that LLV is just like an extended golf cart, basically.
Yeah, it's
I couldn't imagine
cool,
going over 45, 50 mile an hour on one of those things. It'd probably shake.
It shakes. They're not interstate material.
I see every once in a while you see one running up the interstate. It's like woo.
Yeah, they're rough, man. You get in a good wind, you get in a good crosswind, and it'll lean over on you a little bit. Definitely. But they sleep good.
They sleep good?
Yeah. Back in the playing in the bands days.
Oh, yeah.
I'd take a nap in the back of them every once in a while. You grab you just grab you a big old wad of number 2 sacks and lay them in the back like a pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wait, this is a live stream. Never mind. Just kidding.
What happened?
Nothing. Let's give this away.
I saw your buddies playing in Chris Jansen's band. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my buddy Stan, dude. Been in several bands with him. Stephanie, dang, didn't she win last week?
I think
2
so.
weeks ago. She's hot. She's hot. Yeah, my buddy Stan's playing with Chris Jansen. See, Chris Jansen's from St. Mary's, which Stan lives in Perryville. And Stan gave Chris his first guitar. Like when
I watched that video the other day. That's pretty freaking
that's
cool.
all true stuff, man. It's a really cool story. Years ago, right before Buy Me a Boat came out, maybe a little bit before that, but he was still living in Nashville, and he came into town and played at the Perryville Parks and Rec Center. It's a little amphitheater up there in Perryville. And when I was in the Hopi Lane Project, it was a band with Stan and Shannon Meyer and Jeremy. We opened up for Jansen.
Really?
Yeah. He hadn't quite, he was getting some steam, but he hadn't quite blown up.
Right.
So that's like the most, biggest person I've ever played in front of. But that was pretty cool. It was cool. He seems like a pretty cool dude.
Right.
But yeah, I'm super happy for Stan because Stan's been grinding since like high school, like playing all the time. That's how he makes most of his money. He just plays gigs, local gigs and stuff. But he wasn't a struggling musician. He was making it happen, but he certainly wasn't like living it up. He was having to claw and grind and whatever, scrape for every bit of money he had playing music. And he's a good dude. He's a great teacher. He's done a lot for that community up there. And Chris always said, if I ever make it, and we got a spot in the band for you, I'll give you that call. And another guy up there, Justice, where Charity floor covering. Okay, Justice that's his dad. He's played with Chris Jansen too, but he can't go out on the road. But whenever Chris is around in the area, Justice will, jump up on stage and sit in for him. Justice is a phenomenal guitar player as well. But
there's a lot of those musicians out there that they're really, really, really good, but they're a bass player. They're a guitarist. They're not the lead guy, right?
Right.
Or they're the lead guy they're the best one locally, but there's 10 other ones that are right behind you. But
they're a dime a dozen. It's all about
you got to grind it. You got to put your time in, right?
Well, you got to be good, but you also got to have a break. You got to be, when that break comes, you got to be prepared. And a lot of it is just having the time to do it. Not everybody can just leave everything they've got and go out on the road for a month.
Right.
I mean, there's a very limited amount of people. And then, so if you've got that open schedule and you're a decent musician and you got good chemistry, you're not just a butthead, you play well with others, those 3 things right there, or 4, however many that was, that'll get you far. I mean, because there's not, each one of those knocks down, it thins the herd, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, if you're qualified in all those aspects.
Well, it goes back to, like we talked about, somebody mentioned about local fishermen, Southern Illinois fishermen. And this goes, I would imagine, for any part of the country, but how many greats, either in music, in fishing, in whatever, are never discovered because they're afraid to jump. They don't have the time. There's a whole host of excuses that they're untapped potential out there that just, or they're the best ever. They just don't get what you said, that break. How many people go to Nashville for 10 years and never catch a break?
Most of them.
Yeah.
Like 95% of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you go into any place, you go into an ice cream parlor, and the person that's making your ice cream cone is a better singer and a better guitar player than you are. And she's selling ice cream.
Yep.
You know, and that's everywhere. The person that's waiting your table is a top caliber musician that's just waiting for that opportunity. I mean, there's a song, there's 1,496 guitar pickers in Nashville. There's an old country song where he names how many guitar pickers there are, and then it keeps on adding up. So basically the moral of the song is you're surrounded by capable musicians that just haven't.
Well, it's like
yet.
It's like college athletes. You're really, really good in your high school. You're the best in your high school. You're the best locally. And then you get to college or you get to Nashville and you're just an average guy.
Right. It's like Stephanie here. I mean, if she wasn't tied up with a job, she could go out there on the Bassmaster Tour and, you know, make it happen.
Absolutely.
Right. Especially with all the Baitworks gift cards she's been winning lately. She's got all the right tackle. Nashville Cats. That's it, man. Nailed it. Tom's got the song. That's exactly, there it is. 1,462 guitar pickers in Nashville. Awesome, man. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. I just listened to that song the other day. It's awesome. All right, let's wrap it up, man. Next week, let's see. I talked to Big Al today, and next week we're going to have 4 of the guys that are fishing in the final event of the MPFL Derby. So it's going to be, it'll be interesting because they're going to be doing the interview after a dinner engagement, and there will be adult beverages that were involved. So they will be a little bit loose. So I don't know how it's going to go down. It'll just be fun. We'll all go through it together. We're going to have Bass Warrior is going to be one of them though. Luis Fernandez, which we had him on one time. He's a good dude. I'm not sure who else is going to be on here. So it'll just be fun. Hope you guys can hang out. I like doing the whatever, man. We just
the adult beverages as well.
I don't know. It depends.
See, I'm at home, so it makes a big difference.
Good luck, buddy. Curtis is gonna get out on Cedar Saturday. Maybe I might go Sunday. I got Sunday open too.
It's supposed to rain.
You should do that, Stephanie. You should jump in. You should jump in a BFL division. You know, I mean, I'm thinking Kentucky Lake you might like a little bit better because a lot of the Illini division is really, really tough. I mean, a lot of times a co-angler you get a check with like 1 fish, which is good, but Kentucky Lake, you're going to probably be catching some more fish and it would be different. It's a different style lake than what you guys have in Southern Illinois. But man, I'm 100%. Seems like there's more co-angler, like female co-anglers in the Illini division. That's one thing I noticed. I haven't fished any of those in a while, but I remember when we fished that Galconda one at Smithland Pool, this was like, what, 7 years ago, maybe longer than that. But there was probably 5, 6, 7 female co-anglers.
Mike Black's wife fishes.
Yeah.
She's got a whole group of female anglers that kind of that's
there's a couple in the LBL division.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody's cool, you know. I wouldn't even worry about that. I think the biggest thing as a female that I always wondered is how you going to go to the bathroom in the boat. That's like, if I was a female, that would be the thing that I would be concerned with, and you get that taken care of, you're fine. But yeah, I think you'd enjoy it, Stephanie. It's fun. It's a good time. I mean, it's $100 to enter. I mean, you got to pay the annual membership.
Stephanie, there's no male female restrictions on BFLs. It's a open sport, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's open to.
That's right. Yes, my daughter fished too as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember Melinda.
Yeah,
with Bahio. She kicked ass in the co-angler division. She won she won a regional. Yeah, she might have won a regional.
I was thinking she won Angler of the Year in a
I don't know. She's got a really good resume, and I think she's gonna come back sometime. But
there was somebody that recently, within the last year or two, that a female that won a BFL co-angler.
That was a Toyota. Yeah, there was that, and then there was that Clear Lake. I think it was a Clear Lake in the Toyota division last year, where first and second place were females. They dominated. It was cool. That one girl caught him on a pop R, which was really sneaky. She was just really fishing a pop R really slow behind her boater, and she ended up winning. That was a cool weigh-in too. Yeah, that's right. Melinda won AOI. Yeah, she's a hammer. She actually, so Melinda, there was a tournament 2 years ago on Kentucky Lake, and I was talking to her. I stayed with her and Lance. They had a trailer there in on Barkley in Eddy Creek. Anyway, I was talking to her the night before tournament, and we were kind of talking about LiveScope, and it was just kind of where LiveScope was starting to become more common. And I was saying, I think my boater is going to be throwing like a chatterbait. She goes, if she's throwing a chatterbait and you're fishing like grass and stuff, he's throwing a chatterbait around grass. She said, pitch a Ned rig. I'm like, what? A Ned rig? She goes, yeah, just throw a Ned rig, spinning rod, just flip it around.
I remember that tournament.
Yeah, sure enough, I set the hook on a 510 in like 3 foot of water on a spinning rod with like 8-pound test, like 10-pound braid, 8-pound fluoro. All hell broke loose. And I pulled that fish up, and I was like, my boater scooped it. And next thing you know, there's like almost a 6-pounder in the net that I caught on a Ned rig, like just a turd, like the small one with a little small hook on it, flipping around grass. That was all Melinda. She told me to do that. So yeah, she knows what she's doing.
She can handle herself in a bass boat, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Stephanie, that'd be cool, man. Think about it. Seriously. All right, that's it. Thanks again. Go check out Bass Braid. That's some pretty good braid, and it's very inexpensive. So you're getting a lot for what you pay for.
Heck yeah.
As always, THM10 and Bait Works, 10% off. Adios.
See you guys.